Tim Waltz is now being accused of stolen valor because on numerous occasions, he either tries to make it seem like he served in Afghanistan or Iraq, or he outright says he was in war. Even CNN is calling him out. The dude served in Italy. And I can certainly respect 24 years of military service, but you can't go around saying that you were in war carrying weapons or that, using language to try to make it seem like you were actually in the Middle East when you were not. Now, I love this because CNN is saying that J.D. Vance is attacking him without evidence. Yo, we got so much evidence to lay down for you. The only explanation is that the people at CNN are intentionally lying to you. Unless, of course, they're just really dumb people. But we'll talk about that. Cori Bush is also out. Joe Biden says that he does not believe there will be a peaceful transfer of power if Trump loses. Yikes. And Frank Luntz says if the election were held today, Kamala Harris will win. How fun is that? Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to buy Cast Brew coffee. When you buy Cast Brew coffee, you're supporting the show. It's our coffee company. We're trying to set up these coffee shops. We are working to set up these coffee shops. So if you want to support the show, buy our product, go to castbrew.com, buy Appalachian Nights, Rise with Roberto Jr. We got all these different flavors. Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience still available. But once it's gone, it's gone. And Ian's Graphene Dream quickly becoming a new fan favorite. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you'll get access to our Discord server, an exclusive members-only call-in show, which will be happening tonight at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. The other day, YouTube was heavily censoring us. People were not getting the video display in their feeds. And while many are now saying that it seems to be better, in fact, it is not. Once again, I checked my homepage and who run the account. I run the account. Normally, IRL is always the first video right when I open the app. Not today, not yesterday, and this is election season. So if you want to support us to make sure we can't be held back by manipulation, shadow banning, and censorship, go to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member, support the show. But also don't forget to smash the like button, share this, if you're watching on YouTube, take that URL, post it on every social media platform, share it. That is stronger than their shadow banning and their manipulation. That'll help us out. Share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Joey Mannarino.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Tim.
Who are you? What do you do?
So, used to do radio in Philadelphia. Now I do political strategy and digital marketing, fundraising, stuff like that. So that's pretty much my thing. And I have a Twitter page. I'm on there all day now. And that's about it.
Well, right on. Should be fun. Thanks for hanging out. We got Elad hanging out.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? My name is Elad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter here at Timcast News. Joey, thanks for joining us. Hannah Claire, I like the color of your shirt.
I love the color of your shirt. It's fantastic. It's adorable when we work for the same place and we match. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer with Elad at scnr.com. I'm so happy you guys can join us tonight. Let's get started.
Here we go from CNN.com. Vance reopens line of attack into Waltz's military record as two veterans now vie to be vice president. Heck of a headline there. I love this happening now. Kamala Harris speaks at rally in Michigan. Let me just X that out because we don't care. They say Donald Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, stepped up his attacks on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's portrayal of his military career, accusing him without evidence of ducking service in Iraq when he left the Army National Guard and ran for Congress in 2005. Vance also accused Waltz of falsely claiming he had served in combat in a combat zone while the Democratic vice presidential nominee was in the Army National Guard. While Waltz retired 2 months before his unit received alert orders to deploy to Iraq, the attacks on Waltz's military record are part of the race from both parties to define the relatively unknown governor. Okay, so I'll just pause there. If you get your news from CNN, I feel sorry for you. And that's why we highlight this first. I have got so much evidence it is going to make your head spin. How about this first one from Jack Posobiec? This is an article from 2005, a press release. Waltz still planning to run for Congress despite possible call to duty in Iraq for immediate release, March 20th, 2005. They knew in advance. They say on Thursday, March 17th, the National Guard Public Affairs Office announced a possible partial mobilization of roughly 2,000 troops in the Minnesota National Guard. First District Congressional candidate Tim Waltz currently holds the rank of Command Sergeant Major in the 125th Battalion, which is based in New Ulm and largely composed of men and women from southern Minnesota. When asked about his possible deployment to Iraq, Waltz said, "I do not yet know if my artillery unit will be part of this mobilization, and I am unable to comment further on specifics of the deployment." Others have come out calling him a traitor who abandoned his men, bypassing the chain of command so that he can get relieved and then go run for office. I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you, evidence certainly suggests he did know he would be deploying and decided he would leave instead. Now, a lot of people have come out and said, no, he was planning his retirement months in advance. That's true. However, many commenters and many other veterans have stated that when deployment orders were in the pipelines, many of them stalled their plans to intentionally serve their country, knowing they would need to be deployed. Tim Waltz is being criticized for not doing that, for deciding to leave. And now, and there's, look, even if someone else came in, I don't think it's fair to call him a traitor because he didn't want to deploy. I think it's more just like, I don't know, to do something like this. And then later, from the Washington Free Beacon, Tim Waltz falsely claimed he served in Afghanistan. When a local vet called him out, his office did nothing. Come on. I'll just play this video because CNN is garbage. We're going to play this video for you. You can listen. You can hear what he said for yourselves.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
You heard it. He said he carried weapons of war in war. Homie, according to Wikipedia, we're going to use Wikipedia because the source is actually task and purpose. They say he deployed to Italy. And in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, he did not deploy to Iraq, Afghanistan, or a combat zone during his service. So what do you guys think? Is that stolen valor? At least it's not legally stolen valor, but many people are calling it stolen valor.
It's definitely implied valor at the very least, right?
It's pathetic. It's pathetic is what it is. He's trying to run for office under false pretense. He's trying to say he's a veteran, he fought in a war, he did all these great things. What did he do in Italy? With sip cappuccinos with bombs going overhead? It wasn't World War II. No. You didn't see combat, so don't act like you saw combat. It's very simple. It's a disgrace. It's just, they're all liars. The whole ticket over there is just a bunch of frauds and phonies. It's disgusting, and he needs to resign, frankly.
Do you think that Americans will make the distinction?
Will Americans make the distinction?
They'll hear, oh, well, he was in the National Guard, he was in the Army.
If the media lets them hear the facts, CNN without evidence, there's all the evidence. Tim just read the evidence. Let them hear 2 minutes of that. People are just going to understand this very quick. Kamala's a liar about her past. He's a liar about his past. It's a ticket of liars.
Here's more evidence from CNN themselves. How about that?
Waltz did make a comment speaking to a group. He's done it a couple of times where he has used language that has suggested that he carried weapons in a fighting situation. As you know, with your contact with the military, I know from coming from a military family, there is a difference between being in a combat area, being involved at a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. There is no evidence that at any time Governor Waltz was in a position of being shot at, and some of his language could easily be seen to suggest that he was. So that is absolutely false when he said that about gun rights out there.
So this is, we refer to this as assumptive language, and I'll give you a simple, well, you can look at what he says and understand the basics of it. I served in Operation Enduring Freedom. And the assumption people then make from that is that you're in the Middle East. Right. No, he was in Italy. So if I said something like, guys, for dinner, I really want to get these amazing steaks, these beautiful $1,000 steaks for each and every one of us. And if you show up to work early tomorrow, I'm going to do everything I can to get you these $1,000 steaks. And then when everyone shows up, I go, everybody, I did it. I got dinner. And everyone's cheering. Yeah. The assumption is I got the dinner I promised. Mm-hmm. But then when the end of the shift comes around, there's pizza. And it cost me $20. Tricking people by using language that would lead a reasonable person who trusts you into believing something that is not true. That is what Tim Waltz is doing because he's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is. Everything about him is disgusting. Every policy he's espoused is horrible. Everything about
which of the gun control ones?
The gun control ones. We can get into that. We can also talk.
Like, there's very few, to be completely honest.
Well, he's just a pathetic guy with the whole pedophile bill. Everything about this guy is horrible.
You got to blame the state legislature of Minnesota for that one, too.
Well, he could have vetoed it.
Exactly.
He
I mean, he
could've
signed
vetoed
it.
The thing is, he wouldn't have, though. What I found really fascinating about Waltz's story is that when he ran for Congress, he was in a more conservative area, and he basically postured like a moderate Democrat, right? And I hear sometimes right now, oh, he's the populist progressive that Kamala has added to the ticket. No, because as governor, especially when the state became completely Democrat-controlled, every branch of government was led by Democrats, he was like, great, I'm totally here for any progressive thing you guys want to get behind. And I think that's what is the problem. Like, does he have these values, or was he always a progressive hiding in plain sight, faking it to moderates? Or is he just going to do whatever his party around him tells him to do? I mean, it's not a good position for us to have in any kind
As
of
you go up the
leadership.
political chain, you come under more scrutiny from the media and others, as you should. And it seemed like he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar here, clearly embellishing a little bit. Not the craziest embellishment, but obviously trying to make him seem like he has more credibility with vets and stuff like that. I'm surprised the Kamala Harris campaign didn't catch it sooner, because I'm sure they vetted him very thoroughly. And this was probably one of the focuses of the Kamala Harris campaign too. Like, how can I reach out to like the suburban white veteran type voter? And it's, oh, look at this jolly old former football coach, and he was a veteran, and like that plays well to help rough out the edges of Kamala Harris, so to speak. And now it's kind of backfiring in their face under more scrutiny.
It gets worse. It gets worse. We have this from Green Beret Nap Time on X. He's 18 series Army, taking naps and hunting down terrorists, politically homeless conservative, tired of the BS. And he posted this: hey, Tim Waltz, this you? Do you often wear our crest even though you were only National Guard with 0 deployments? Never went through special SFAS or the Q course, and by all accounts never even worked with Special Forces? Stolen valor much? Now, I got to correct you there, Green Beret, buddy. He had a deployment to Italy. Ah, man, getting deployed to Italy, that sounds like a nice one. No, look, I will say this too, like, I'm not going to give him 0 respect. I will criticize him for exaggerating and claiming he did things he didn't do, but I respect anybody who's going to serve. They'll get at least a couple degrees of respect from me. However, you know, like J.D. Vance, he actually did serve in the Middle East. Well, that's tremendously more respectful. I do not respect the administration, the governments that lied to get us into those wars, but the men and women, J.D. Vance or Tulsi Gabbard, who ran full speed to serve this country when they thought this country needed it most, I respect. Now, take a look at these pictures. You got this picture of Tim Waltz. He's wearing a Green Beret insignia, baseball caps in numerous photos. And, you know, people are saying, like, it's just a baseball cap. Come on, hold on there a minute. When the dude says, I was in the Army and I served in Operation Enduring Freedom, and then he puts on a Green Beret cap, yo, come on. You know what he's trying to trick people into thinking, that he's Special Forces who actually was in combat, and then he lies and says, I carried weapons of war in war. Now that deserves 0 respect. It is an indignity. It deserves scorn.
Yeah, it cancels out what he did in the military, if you ask me. It really cancels most of what he did out, because it's disgusting to try to falsify everything to get people who want to vote for you because of your service to vote for you under something you never did. It's a disgraceful lie. It really is. And it just shows to his character. It shows the kind of person he is. And it's just the kind of person that she is. They will say anything they need to any audience to get them to believe it, so they can walk into that White House and ruin this country. Say whatever you need to say. He's the Midwestern dad. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Can I just say this? The Democrats have a contingent that hate Jews so much that they chose Waltz over Shapiro. And did you see Shapiro's speech at that PA rally?
It was a good speech.
He did a good job.
Good speech.
And I saw a lot of conservatives being like, well, I'm glad they didn't pick this guy. But you know what's funny is conservatives understood what Shapiro did well in speaking at that rally. But Democrats understand as well that progressives will not vote for a Jewish man who has pro-Israel views.
Can you elaborate more on that? Because I think that Democrats have been calling that a Republican line of attack. I actually caught up with Senator John Fetterman at the Philadelphia rally yesterday and asked him this question about him being, do you think if his pro-Israel bona fides is what helped drag him away from that? And he said no. So a lot of Dems are trying to cover for this.
Of course.
And it also makes the Democrats look bad to say that, though. But
progressives wrote a letter saying, do not pick this man because Arabs, Muslims, and young people will not support him. We don't like his views on Israel. On CNN, you had numerous commentators, including recently, this was a George W. Bush, was he an advisor or something? I don't know. He worked in the administration, I think. And this is not just a right-wing point. This has been widely, look, let me put it this way. If what they're claiming about Shapiro was true, that no, it has nothing to do with that. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman would still be in office. Or they would have won their primaries.
True.
But Democrats do not like people, you get my point. You get my point.
And I think Shapiro has something like a 60% approval rating.
Very popular in Pennsylvania.
And I know the Republicans are eyeing Pennsylvania very aggressively, but I'm trying to think of the past few elections when Mastriano lost to Fetterman and Bob Casey is their senior senator there. So, I mean...
It's tough. Pennsylvania's, we think about it every 4 years for Republicans. It's usually a dream. Trump got it in 2016 by a very slim margin. We if we get it, we get it. We don't necessarily need it for the map. There is a map without it. There is no map for the Democrats without it, though. Their math does not work.
I want to rephrase what I just said to clarify, because I don't know if it was clear enough. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman were their campaigns were outspent by support from, I think it was AIPAC directly. Was it AIPAC directly?
Or the United Democracy Project, because this is within the Democratic primary.
Right. I think it was United Democracy Project. Progressive leftists face windfalls of cash against them for being anti-Israel. These are people who won in the first place on these positions. AOC was resilient to this. It is very obvious when Cori Bush goes on stage after losing, screaming, what did she say? Something like, I will end your kingdom?
Yeah, I will tear your kingdom down.
Is that what she said?
Yes.
That there is a she got, 50,000 votes?
I didn't look
So Democrats know for sure that if they choose someone like Shapiro, they are going to lose large swaths of votes. And the interesting thing is, I wonder if it's not so much that they were facing real damage from the anti-Semitic portions of their party and anti-Israel. I know they're not the same thing, but in Minnesota, they may have lost Minnesota if they got Shapiro because was it
Michigan is the one they really were going to lose. Dearborn, it's where all the Muslims were thrown.
But you've got Somali Muslims.
Oh, I know.
Massive population. So
that's why they picked Tim Walz. He's basically a Somalian. I mean,
they could have lost Michigan and Wisconsin over someone who had. Did you see the things that Shapiro had said?
Yeah, he was in the IDF
when he didn't serve in a military role. He served in a volunteer role, doing dishes or something.
Sort of similar to Tim Walz, right?
Maybe even less. I think they really were mad. The anti-Israel people were very mad at Shapiro because he said he didn't believe in a two-state solution or it wasn't ready, or the Palestinians are too violent for a two-state solution. He's not wrong. On that, I don't think. I also think there's an important distinction we need to make between the anti-Israel sentiment that we are seeing within the Democrat Party. I think there is a portion of there is a way to criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic. The question is how many of the people who are criticizing Israel and are anti-Shapiro are doing that out of their bigotry.
Let's pull this story up. We have this. This is from today. CNN panel explodes as ex-Bush advisor claims Kamala Harris couldn't pick Josh Shapiro due to rampant anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. I don't think it's fair to say the panel exploded. This is Scott Jennings, a former special assistant to President George W. Bush. He made his point, and no one got bent out of shape over it. He made his point. Let me pull it up here. I think it's around the 5-minute mark where he chimes in on this one.
Bowed down to the radical left in her party by not picking Shapiro, who is Jewish. There was a nasty campaign run against him. Everybody knows it. No one wants to admit it, but everybody knows it. And she wound up choosing the person who was not Jewish and not as talented and not from the state that she has to win. He did a nice job tonight. Everybody could see why he was the best choice, but she couldn't do it because the party is somewhat awash in anti-Semitism. And for Walz, when he did what he did during the riots, to me, it was him saying, I don't have the strength or the character to stand up to this anarchy. So in two big decision points for this ticket, they've showed us they will always bow down to the radical left. So I think if you want to talk about the normal people in this country, bowing down to the radical left is not normal. It shouldn't be normal, and it should be a flashing red light.
But this is the reality. And I think he's right. I think the reality is when you look at Cori Bush, they had to dump so much money to compete against her. Now, the reality is people in her district don't like her. The people in Ilhan Omar's district don't like her. The Somali Muslims don't like Ilhan Omar. And this is an important point because a lot of conservatives think that she gets massive support from the Somali community. They roast her all the time because she's a leftist, she's woke, and she's pro-LGBTQ. Right. You can still see with AOC and the squad a large DSA leftist, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine contingent. And the question then becomes, outside of the woke, you do have Dearborn, you do have the Somali migrants in Minnesota. Were they to have picked Shapiro, maybe they could have won in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Maybe they could have won back some of these more moderate Jewish voters in the United States who are concerned and probably going to be voting for Trump. But they probably would have lost a lot in Michigan and Minnesota, which I believe it was Michigan, where they had that campaign to not vote for, was it not to vote for Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Well, remember, Kamala wasn't running during the primary. Right. She was still the VP.
And I think it's fair to say that there's a difference between criticism of Israel and claiming that they wouldn't vote for a Jewish guy. But I got to stress this, because we had Taylor Hansen on the Culture War podcast, Tenet Media, Friday, 10 a.m. I think this was last week. I have been on the ground, and you have too, Elad. So I want to hear your experiences, but I will tell you mine. I have met many people in the 10 years that I was on the ground who are holding up signs publicly saying, we have no problem with Jewish people. It's just Israel. When the cameras turn off, they're like, no, it's Jews.
So there's so many different groups and types of people, different types of people that you'll see at protests, and some of them are on the same page and some aren't. So at these
fair point. I've met people who are strictly anti-Israel. I have friends who are very critical of Israel. You're allowed to.
I'm trying to be very nuanced here. So you'll go to these events and there'll be like young white liberals, the people from the young crowd, like a young black person, a young Spanish person, and I find like some of those people actually tend to be not pro-Hamas, but I'll find them next to more extreme protesters who wrap the keffiyeh around their head, who are usually Arab, who are more likely to yell Allahu Akbar. For example, a couple of weeks ago when Bibi Netanyahu came and visited and gave a speech at Congress, what were the chants that we were seeing when they took the flag down and started burning it? It was the Allahu Akbar. Some of the people disperse at that point. There are only a few flags that have the Hezbollah's logo on it. But then again, it's considering like, I remember back in the day when at a Trump rally, if they saw one person with a swastika somewhere outside, they'd say, oh, everybody at the rally is a Nazi. But nobody seems to condemn this stuff actively while they're there. Right. So I'm just trying to have some nuance.
No, I completely agree. So I'll clarify my point. You go to these rallies, you go to these protests, and you'll find people who are like, no, I don't want any hatred towards Jewish people. My friends are Jewish. I'm concerned about Israel. And that's their legitimate position. But there's a lot of people who will on camera say it's Israel because they know what the PR looks like. And then once the camera's off, they'll start talking about Jews starting the slave trade and using banks to control the world and start world wars. We saw this with the Women's March. You had that story from Tablet Magazine. Do you remember this one?
No.
There was a woman who was one of the top organizers, said that the other members of the Women's March sat her down to explain to her how the Jews started the slave trade and start all the world wars and all of these things.
Really?
They won't say it publicly. So and I'll pull that story.
You'll find those people. You'll find a small group of those people at all anti-Israel protests, but I don't want to try to tar all of those people as those groups, because if you hate Jews, then you want to show up to the anti-Israel events.
Yeah, but who was screaming Allah Akbar? Was it the Muslims or was it white kids too?
It was people who were wrapped up in keffiyeh, so they try to cover themselves, and in that way you can't really tell, because wearing a keffiyeh isn't a Muslim thing. I think it's like a Palestinian Arab thing. It's where they wrap their head up and are using it to conceal their identity. And a lot of young white liberals, non-Arabs, non-Middle Easterners have appropriated it, and it's kind of just become Palestinian symbol, but a way to cover yourself too. So
they do realize, like, I don't know if any of them realize this. Look at London right now. You see all the Muslims attacking everybody, raping all the women, stabbing all the kids. Okay. Just because you think you're one of them, you're not. They will cut your head off too. Like,
well, I think it's clear to see who is pro-America and who is anti-American in these protests. If you don't, you can dive into all the details if you want, but go on.
I want to ask you a question. Is Farrakhan an anti-Semite?
I believe so. I think his rhetoric is not only anti-Semitic, I'd say he's also anti-white.
I think when he called Jewish people termites or made reference to Jewish people he didn't like as termites, I think it's fair to say he just literally doesn't like Jewish people. So this is a Tablet magazine from 2018. It's not the only article. But they mentioned the Women's March leadership. Okay, these are Democrats.
Sarsour,
They wear the pussy hats. They did the Women's March in 2018. Linda Sarsour, Tamika Mallory, Carmen Perez all proudly declared their friendship and partnership with Farrakhan on various occasions. And this is just one of the stories where it's like, yeah. So I'm just saying this. The idea that Democrats are claiming, because you mentioned earlier, it was Fetterman who said it, right? Fetterman said that no, the reason everyone's, it's a Republican talking point that Shapiro wasn't chosen because he's Jewish. BS. These are the organizers of the Women's March who are pro-Farrakhan. They would have lost too many votes, and they can't do it. That Democrats they won't do it.
Yeah. It's about margins. It's a slim election. You cannot lose. They could have lost 3-4% of the party very easily.
That's right.
Easily. Conservatively, 3-4% of the party.
There's a lot of different strains. We don't need to focus on this too much, but my last tidbit on this is there are many different strains of anti-Semitism, and I think it's important to analyze them and take them for what they are separately. This Louis Farrakhan and Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour adjacent anti-Semitism is from a place of viewing Jews as rich, privileged white landlords. So I just wanted to kind of
Have you
flesh that out.
seen the memes posted by people of this repute?
Well, they're communists.
They show the privilege pyramid with white people on top, and then above it is a free-floating Jewish group. Like, these are the memes that these people were posting in 2018. They think they were saying things like, "You're not ready for the truth," and it was the white privilege pyramid meme with Jews above it.
Wow.
And then you've got people like this, because I don't know what they posted. I know that people who are following them had been posting things. I know that there had been a lot of instances where some members of Congress had images from groups they were following were posting things like this and being screenshot. I'm going to say this. By all means, please criticize Israel. You're allowed to do it. Israel is just another country. I don't think the U.S. should be funding any of this stuff. That's just my opinion. That being said, the Democrats do have a large anti-Semitic contingent. Large could be, like you said, 3 to 4%. They're not going to pick Josh Shapiro.
It's much larger than 3-4%. I just think there's only 3-4% that would withhold their vote. I think the anti-Semitic, quote unquote, I don't care. And I'm not big on the Jew thing. I don't care either way, one way or another. But it's at least 25-30% of their party that just literally cannot stand Jews.
You think it's that big?
Yeah,
Wow.
I do. I absolutely do. Who's at all these
I think the progressives have become like the poison pilled on Jews largely.
But I don't necessarily think it's just the progressives. Muslims as well, more fundamentalist Muslims. I think you make a good point. I don't think all the Somali Muslims in Minnesota are going to be like, oh, we won't vote for a Jewish guy. But I think enough of them.
Yeah.
And that causes problems.
He won 11,000 votes. Trump won these states, some of them 11,000 votes. You can absolutely convince 11,000 of these guys to not vote. And I'm wondering how they're going to vote for a woman, actually, though. That's one of my things.
I wonder about
they
that.
don't respect women.
I mean, I
they
think
hate
part
women.
of this is that the Democrats have painted it that, they're the open-minded party and they love everybody. And they, it's just occasionally they have to take down white people who have had too much power for too long. And Republicans are the racist ones when that's just not true, right? Like fundamentally, a lot of racial, religious, ethnic groups in America have tensions with other people of different backgrounds or different, persuasions, let's say, and they have just marketed to convince themselves that they don't. And I think that's why the conflict between Israel and Palestine really shocked a lot of older Democrats, because they thought, oh, no, we're the good guys and we're always on the same side. And the reality is that there are tons of people who have bias against different racial groups. It's in the Democratic Party, just like it's everywhere else in the world.
Absolutely.
Let's jump to this next story. Tim Walz labeled Tampon Tim by infuriated Republican after forcing schools to stock feminine products in boys' bathrooms.
Bad week to be named Tim, I guess.
I guess. It's fine, though. I'm just going to go by Daniel from now on. It's my middle name, so this is Daniel Cast.
Just wait out this storm
Dancast.
for a little bit.
Wait out the storm. Tim's not a good name to have. Tim Walz, you're ruining it for me.
Do we have tampons in our bathroom here?
No.
Oh, well, that's not very good.
Oh,
news
wait,
for
yeah,
the
we do.
trans. Oh, well, I guess we're...
Don't we?
I'll check later. Come to the members only show. I'll let you know.
You're the only one who should know.
I'm pretty sure this is an office. We've got mouthwash. We've got like
used to
hair
have,
trimming
I
stuff.
think there was
We've got-
makeup.
We used to keep like
we do.
hairspray on stuff for if a guest was.
I'm pretty sure.
asking for it.
Accommodating?
I'm pretty sure we have literally everything you would need, like makeup and all that stuff. Actually, we don't have makeup here right now. We did at the other studio. This studio had like everything you could possibly need. Change of clothes.
Shower
shirt,
downstairs.
Shower downstairs. Yeah, because we're doing a show.
Tim's very accommodating to all of his guests, everybody.
Well, I mean, it's just standard studio stuff. We've had instances where people have like needed a white shirt or something. You know what I mean? Like someone spills barbecue sauce or whatever. What do? You gotta wear barbecue sauce on the show. Anyway.
I might start calling you Tampon Tim.
I don't know what you're asking. I'm Daniel. This is DanCast. The Democrat was announced as the VP. We know. Being a white military veteran from the Midwest broadens Harris's appeal. I've heard people calling him Tampon Tim because why use a progressive individual that wanted to put tampons in boys' locker rooms in the school as governor? Florida Republican Rep. Brian Mass said of Harris's VP picks gender policies. The name Tampon Tim has since been used throughout conservative circles to describe the governor picked to pad Harris's presidential prospects. While I do think it's absolutely hilarious to call the men this, I think it is horrifyingly ineffective. Someone else made the point, I can't remember who was on Twitter. They said, all this will do is when a normie asks a Democrat, why are they calling him Tampon Tim? The Democrat's going to say, because he wanted to fund feminine hygiene products in schools. And they're going to go, really? That's why Republicans are mad?
The issue is he put it in the boys' rooms.
But that's
too.
never.
We're never going to talk about that.
Yeah.
No, we're never going
Just
to
like
talk
with-
about it. It needs to be called transgender Tim.
No,
Right?
I disagree.
No?
I disagree.
What do you...
like wreck the economy Waltz or something. Like I mean, honestly, Donald Trump knows it better when he just said like low energy or Lil Marco.
Yeah.
In that vein, I'd say wide mouth Waltz has got a big mouth. He talks like this. He's a weird guy. Make fun of his appearance, mock him for being kooky and weird. That seems to work at the lowest common denominator. But Tampon Tim, just like with the school books, we ask ourselves this every day. Why is it that we have shown these books time and time again where they claim it's sex ed for kids and it's just normal stuff and it's graphic porn and weird degenerate stuff. And still, to this day, the Democrat lie persists.
True.
Because it's been effective for them and we haven't cut through the mold enough. Now, certainly a lot of people have been informed of the books in these schools. And they say you're trying to ban books. Still on stage, what do you get? You get Waltz saying they want to ban books. No one wants to ban books. They want to ban porn, but they're lying. So calling him Tampon Tim or TransTim or whatever is not going to do anything. You got to take it from the Trump playbook and call him like Wacky Waltz.
Yeah.
I think
Wacky Waltz got a big wide mouth and he lies all the time.
Well, Trump will coin the name soon, and we'll see what it is. And Trump's not going to use Tampon
Trump
Tim.
should
What do
just
you
call
do?
him Timmy. Because I feel like grown men, like you might
Yeah,
call a kid
yeah.
Timmy, but you don't call grown
Tiny
men
Tim.
Timmy.
Tiny
No,
Tim.
Timmy-
just
Timmy is good.
And then it
Timmy
feels
Waltz,
kind of
they
like
call him.
he's not a serious person. It's kind of emasculating. Like if you're an adult man who goes by Timmy, that's totally fine. I'm just saying.
No, you're right.
And then just-
Timmy is the right
Be like-
way to go.
And then be like, Timmy watched his city burn. Timmy couldn't decide
Little
if
Timmy.
he should. He didn't have a leadership. He was too scared.
Ooh, how about Weasel Waltz?
Ooh, maybe.
That's a
liar.
good one. Weasel Waltz. is
Weasel
good.
Waltz lied about his service, claiming that he was in combat when he wasn't because he's a weasel. That's what they call him.
Yeah.
But Timmy works too because Tommy is fine. Like you're not going to call a grown man by usually these. What are they called when you like someone's name is?
Nicknames.
Diminutive.
Well, yeah, like diminutive. No, it's not really it's kind of a nickname, but
Yeah.
like someone's name is Richard, you call him Rick. But there's a you can call anybody Rick, but you don't call him Ricky.
That's
Like
true.
some people, some people can keep it up. A Ricky into
there are just
older
certain
age,
like
but-
versions of these names that I think of as being for like children versus
Yes.
like
Right.
like your family might have called you Timmy when you were like 4, but at a
Not when
certain
I was
point-
7.
You know what I mean? Like you transitioned out of it, you became Tim. Same things. Like I think
That's right. I transitioned to Tim.
you transitioned into a more you evolved into a more masculine form. But I think this is the thing. Like this is a man
Waltz.
who is now claiming to have or implying that he has maybe seen combat. He hasn't. Like it to me is seeming very kind of immature.
I actually like that a lot. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Timmy too.
Little Timmy Waltz. He was scared
There's
during the
just so
riots, so he
much.
hid.
There's just so much. The sad part is, in 1 week, nobody's going to talk about this guy. It's going to be back to Kamala.
I don't think so.
You think he's going to remain a focus?
One of the benefits to choosing Kamala Harris as a VP candidate, and one of the risks, is that she has no SEO. So when you're crafting YouTube videos or tweets or Facebook posts, you need to consider, if you're doing any kind of social media marketing, the volume attached to someone's name.
Yeah.
This is why you'll notice this, there are a lot of obsessed people on the left who make videos about me all day, every day. It's because Tim Pool and Timcast have massive search volume. So if you go on YouTube and you're like, I want to get 100,000 views, make a video about Tim Pool and people are going to watch it because they love to talk about me. Kamala Harris has none. Her search volume, so we use these metrics that track by a percentile. I think her search volume is like high 40s.
Wow.
Whereas mine is like 72. So I have a higher search, a higher SEO. It doesn't necessarily mean more people are talking about me, like there's more instances of Timcast. In this instance, I think it does. But let me clarify that. Kamala Harris has been in the news quite a bit, but she's never been the centerpiece. So while there's a lot of articles and a lot of social media posts about her, social media commentary was almost always about Joe Biden, and she was an afterthought. They'd mock her, but they'd never use her in the titles, in the descriptions, because her name never had strong pull. I do think it's fair to say that only because I've been doing a show for a decade that there's going to be more instances of my name on social media, specifically where people are insulting, attacking me, creating a lot of drama and arguments, and Kamala was more in the corporate press. That may be why. But all I can say is, if you make a video using Kamala Harris in the title, you get 0 views. There is no SEO attached to it. I think the strategy there is make it very difficult for anyone to generate any kind of, like, I got to tell you, you try to make a video and you're like, Kamala Harris is the VP, and like YouTube will not recommend it. It will not get easily found in search, because the way the algorithms work is when someone, if someone searches for a name and the percentage by which people click on it is high, then YouTube's or Google or whatever is going to keep recommending that higher and higher and higher. Kamala Harris has low SEO, a low SEO score. Now, I wonder, because we got another story we'll pull up in a little bit about how they're trying to hire people like Kai Cenat and FaZe, I think his name is, to do these streams with Kamala because of the Aiden Ross thing. They're trying to generate more SEO. I wonder if this is their strategy. This is their version of the basement campaign. Everybody knows Kamala Harris. We know her name, but it doesn't play well on social media because no one really cares about her. She's a bleh. She's an afterthought. Biden had history for a long time. She's got nothing behind her.
It is true.
She's got no policy. She's got no plans. And so it's hard to actually go after her. Social media personalities, I guarantee, especially on the left, are going to be saying to themselves, if I make a video about her, no one's going to want to click on it.
Yeah. But I actually think the mainstream press is getting kind of frustrated with her because she doesn't have any policy. She's also refusing to do interviews. I was watching an NBC morning show, and they were specifically saying, they're like, oh, yes, and she did a good job, and, you know, whatever. They're doing typical talking points. They're praising Waltz and Harris for the rally, but then they're like, well, she's really only answered one press question since her campaign began. And I think that, you know, the lack of personality and just delving into sort of identity attacks on Trump and Vance is starting to sort of peter out. I mean, if you looked at Vance just showing up at her airplane today, that was so funny. She could never pull off that kind of organic online engagement where you get this funny photo op of him, like, you know, walking out. It's not the same.
She's a robotic person. She has no personality. She's extremely bland. She's brain dead, but she's stupid enough to know that she's stupid because she will not go talk to the press because she'll get obliterated. She can't answer a question. She couldn't even sit in this room and have a conversation with people. She is just dumb, but not dumb enough to not realize she's dumb. There's two different types.
What if she's like insanely smart?
I think it's a great campaign strategy.
That would be hard to believe.
She should try her hardest to avoid getting nailed down on any policy positions. Her campaign
She didn't try very hard before.
It's just
set me up for that.
It's strictly vibes, and she's running as a black female. That's it.
Even though she's not.
A black woman.
Even though she's not.
And then the implications that supposedly come with that. Abortion is a huge issue for Democrats, especially coming on the heels of the Dobbs decision. So that is really the face.
Really on the heels, though, right?
It's
That's
still
like
on the
years old.
historical heels of the Dobbs decision.
She was the abortion lady.
Is probably the #1 issue mobilizing Democrats.
Yes.
And now having a woman at the forefront, a black woman nonetheless, people who have the most abortions, is what it's all about. Vibes. She doesn't want to get nailed down to any
Well, and then she can't be accused,
policy.
if she were to win, she can't be accused of not fulfilling her promises. She
No.
didn't promise you anything.
But ever since the Dobbs decision, she toured the country for 2 years going to abortion clinics. This is where she went Walz, like you said.
where she met Walz.
All she did was talk about abortion, abortion, abortion. That's the only policy anyone even knows.
It's a great strategy for Democrats, though.
Well,
It's
is.
kind of wild that like the Democratic Party has this large contingent of women terrified to have babies and men who just want to bang around and not be dads.
Yeah.
Like that's their voting block.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all fear mongering, right?
Yes.
And so this becomes one of the key ways. Abortions
But
are
no.
like.
I don't agree that it's fear mongering. I'm saying like there's a bunch of guys who are like, I just want to bang a chick and not be a dad. And then there's a bunch of women like, yeah, I'd like to also, you know, do dudes and then not be a mom.
fear of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
That there would be consequences to the lifestyle that you live and you have to accept them. Like, to me, abortion is a very difficult issue to handle in America because we don't have a clear consensus on it. We don't have a clear cultural position on it. And it's evolved a lot, especially as, we get more information about science, about, embryo development, whatever. And so it's very easy to be weaponized as an emotional issue for people who are saying, like, they're trying to lock you up and keep you in the kitchen. And men, you'll get stuck with any girl that you sleep with and have an accidental pregnancy. Like, they make this to be part of this, like, this is the only way to keep up the lifestyle you have, even though this lifestyle is not actually making you
It's
happy.
not an issue they want to permanently solve, because if it were to be permanently solved, then they wouldn't be able to campaign on it and raise money on it. Also, we love talking about campaign finance, but the biggest PACs in the country raising the most money are all abortion groups. It's NARAL, it's Emily's List, it's Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
They're making major moves, but nobody cares.
We got to jump to this story from the Post-Millennial. Oh, Libby's mad. Post-Millennial. The Post-Millennial. Tim Waltz's wife, Gwen, kept windows of governor's mansion open during George Floyd riots to smell the burning tires. Am I allowed to call this weird? Am I allowed, or are we
Worse
trying
than
to?
weird.
It's sick.
No,
it's actually sick. These people.
I'm just imagining her
It's
like
deranged.
opening the
Yeah,
windows.
it's sick. It's sick. Yeah. They're Marxists. They love conflict.
have the
They love
video?
chaos. They're crazy people.
Yeah, do they have the interview in here?
Maybe it's
They don't. They have the
hyperlinked.
quotes.
It was a radio interview,
I think we
KTSA.
actually-
I think there was a
pull it
video
up.
because I saw it, and just
really?
the look on her faces and her expressions throughout it is what.
See if you can find
added
it on
an
X.
ounce
Did you see the video of him?
Let me read the quote real quick.
yeah.
She says, "I could smell the burning tires, and that was a very real thing. I kept the windows open as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening." She added, noting that there were a lot of sleepless nights.
It's important to note her husband was the governor at the time, and the city here was on fire. They abandoned, I think it was one of the precincts in this city that was eventually attacked and burned down. This is where that famous CNN Chiron, I think it was, with the mostly peaceful
Mostly
protest.
peaceful.
I think we have it.
I would say those first days, when there were riots, I could smell the burning tires. And that was a very real thing. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
What?
She sounds just
Don't
like
worry.
Kamala when she speaks, too.
She, the privileged white female, is really with you guys, you progressives in the streets.
She
who are
kept the
struggling.
windows open because she had a fence around her with security
Yeah.
everywhere. Of course, you keep the windows open. This woman's go out, and why didn't she go out and protest with them?
I'd like to tell you my 2020 Summer of Love story. I wasn't in Minnesota. We were in near Woodbury, New Jersey. That's where the first location was. That was just at my house. And I thought we were going to be fine. I knew the riots were getting bad, but I'm like, we're on the other side of the river. We're in Jersey. We're not in Philly. We're in a wooded suburban area. Ain't nothing's going to happen over here. And then one day I was on my deck and I heard sirens and I saw helicopters and I was like, yo, what? And then I checked the news and the rioters crossed the bridge and they were only a few miles away. And I was like, I don't think we should be anywhere near this place. And so I did not just open my windows and take it all in. I said, we should move, and we should move as quickly as we can. And that's when we went to what we referred to as the castle, which was in Western Maryland. And had I known then what I know now, I would have chosen West Virginia immediately. But I thought the area was probably, similar enough. But we decided to leave because of it, because the rioters from Philly, the crime, it was getting so bad. They were crossing the bridge. I said, let's go. We're done. Not to mention, I will also stress the COVID lockdowns. We had a fear that they would shut the bridges down, and then we'd be stuck with all that stuff going on. So we were like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
It's a position of privilege. They love to say white privilege, white privilege. That's a statement of white privilege. You want to talk
Did
about
you see
it?
that clip of Waltz being like, with white privilege,
Yeah,
I know I gotta fight the...
White privilege. He's a DEI hire is what he is. He was only hired because he's a white man, by the way. That's a DEI hire, too.
Reverse DEI.
yeah, he's a
round
reverse
out the
DEI.
edges
Reverse,
of
it's just
Kamala.
DEI.
He's
It's
a
just
DEI
regular
guy.
DEI. Finally, let's go.
I mean, if DEI actually did help white people get hired in jobs, like Black Panther the movie had a bunch of white people in it because they were concerned about being, too many black actors, I would respect that as a DEI hire. But that's not what they do. When Black Panther came out, they called it like a diverse film
It's
or one of the
diverse.
most diverse. I'm like, it's like 90% black actors. That's not diversity. That's
Diversity is the exclusion of white people.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a
definition of
euphemism for
diversity.
non-white.
yeah. So I don't think I would call Tim Waltz a diversity hire. I would say he's a DEI ideological choice.
Yeah.
He's in line with the cult. So he serves the DEI purpose, but
Well,
he
she
himself
only
is,
looked at white men.
I was gonna
she
say,
only wanted
I
a
think
white
it's-
man. It
I-
had to be white.
I think
it's DEI.
I think it's a diversity hire because it wasn't about anything but what his identity, like what he physically looked like to the voters, right? He's an older white male, and then you can factor in the other identity things. He's from, this more rural state. And so they think, oh, well, he's white, and so white farmers, they're going to love this guy. Close enough. Never mind the fact that he became intensely progressive in office. Never mind the fact that he, was not supportive of law enforcement in the fallout of all of the rioting in his city. And never mind the fact that he, called a national guard, called them out. Like it's not someone that I would say commanded a lot of leadership, but he was, older and white, and so that was good enough for Kamala.
It looks like the Waltz family did see some combat, just not in the Middle East.
He was in the governor's mansion. He's not seeing any combat up close.
Not at all. Not at all. He's the San Francisco liberal.
Well, his wife was smelling some tires, so...
Hey, Raymond G. Stanley Jr. had a really good one. He said, Tim A. Waltz.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, but it's a
There
good
you go.
jab.
A. Waltz.
Hey, Waltz.
Look, I just think Timmy's not your guy. Like, you don't want Timmy to be in charge of anything. Ask Minnesota.
Republicans don't want to attack white suburban women because that is the core demo they're trying to reach out to now. So I think that's a little bit, it would be slighting them too much.
What do you mean?
Isn't it a play on awful?
No,
Waltz?
it's like AWOL.
Never mind.
AWOL.
I picked it up wrong.
What is it, away without leave? Is that what I mean? Absent without leave.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I like this because that means that you're terminally online and not in the military.
No. Not a day in my life, but
Waltz.
online. I serve online every day. No, I got it confused for affluent white
Female liberal.
Oh, yeah. No, I think the main attack on him really has to get to that bill he signed with the transgender stuff, with the protecting pedophiles.
It wasn't that it was overtly like. We got to be clear on this, okay? It removed a provision from law that excluded child predation as a sexual orientation.
Right.
So there was a law that said sexual orientation is defined as such, and then it added adults being attracted to children is not covered or protected, blah, blah, blah. And the Minnesota State Legislature and the governor signed this. They struck that from the law.
Yes. Which is
There's no reason to do that.
Unless
none whatsoever.
You're supporting pedophiles.
Right.
That's the only reason. Why would you? I don't want him around. I wouldn't want somebody around kids who signed that bill. Just saying. I'm not saying anything. But in reality, you only do that if you either support pedophiles or are a pedophile. The only two reasons.
And I think one of our biggest challenges is that as a nation, we don't have a shared culture, and therefore we don't have shared values. But I'm pretty sure everyone, I can't say everyone. I think generally everyone's anti-pedophile. There are small progressive.
Everyone,
There are
yes.
small movements on progressive political fronts that are trying to make it more normal, but generally every parent in America, I'm sure, is like, no, that's not okay.
100%. That needs to be hammered home 100,000 times.
Hold on. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says Jason Dixon gets credit for Walz. That's Jason Dixon who came up with it.
Honorable
Raymond
man,
Stanley
Raymond G.
Jr., such a stand-up guy. He doesn't want stolen meme valor.
No stolen meme valor in this
For
internet war.
A stand-up guy, that Raymond G. Stanley Jr. Too much to his name, but stand-up guy.
I just think it's funny, like the back to the original story, Tim Waltz's wife opening the windows to smell the burning tires. These people, in their minds, the city is burning down and they're celebrating it.
Yeah.
This is a message that I think does way better than calling him Tampon Tim. Figure out what this is, right? They let their city, they let one of their biggest cities burn. The riots persist. This is the governor. And the wife was like, the smell of burning tires. I wanted to keep the windows open. As if the destruction of businesses and people's lives was something to behold, to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
This would be such a great line of attack, but it's unfortunate that Trump called Waltz, I think, during the riots and was telling him that he did a good job. And this was a phone call that Waltz recorded with Donald Trump in 2020
But was
and
this,
decided
like,
to
when
release
he
it now.
released the
Allegedly. I want to say
sent in the
allegedly
National
because
Guard?
I have no confirmation. Do we have that? Do we want to
Pull up which one?
pull up Trump talking to Waltz about how good of a job he did with the riots that were happening in his city. during the
Finding-
George
It,
Floyd
it was on
riots.
Kamala HQ. They put it out on that.
Oh, did they?
account.
Okay.
But it was very cut up. It was very edited. It was all cut up. I mean,
The Independent has something on it.
I think that's why this will become a poor line of attack. And I think the Harris campaign had this tucked away in their pocket, anticipating this attack.
The audio of the call between Trump and the group of governors. Okay, they just locked us out. I am not going to do whatever. Okay, it's gone. Trump saying he was actually very happy with Waltz's handling of the riots and praised him for bringing in the National Guard. I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. Trump said in the call, adding Walz was an excellent guy. Despite the past praise, Trump has already tried to make Waltz's response a campaign point. On Wednesday, he posted a photo of a burning car to Truth Social with the text that read, Tim Walz let Minnesota burn. Kamala Harris bailed out the ones who lit the matches. I will tell you this. Now, I'm a reasonable person. I can understand that immediately following an incident, you don't know everything, and you'll have a different view of it.
Yeah.
If now, 4 years later, Trump's like, well, yeah, in the years following, the more information we gathered from it, the more camera angles, the more videos we saw, the more reports we got, I began to realize he actually didn't do that good of a job. That being said, even if Trump praised Waltz's handling of the George Floyd riots, that doesn't change the fact that his wife boasted about how she wanted to smell burning tires in some sadistic pleasure.
Exactly.
Maybe it's because of a lot of my firsthand experience at different riots, but when I was covering the George Floyd riots in New York City in 2020, I don't think Trump did a good job of handling it, let alone this governor.
Trump did a miserable job
of handling all of these riots throughout. He should have sent the National Guard a whole lot earlier throughout the country.
Insurrection Act if he had to do it. And instead, Trump tried to play nice guy. And look what they do to him. They blame him for everything. They're blaming
that's why
him
he
for
thought
all the riots.
Waltz did a good job, because he probably thought he did a good job himself with handling the riots.
Well, and
it's
at
also
the
funny
same
to
time,
think
it was also diplomatic in a way. You're not going to start slamming him like that right then after the event.
I
The
was
country
gonna
was in
say,
turmoil.
right.
You can't just start saying, yeah, this guy's horrible. Then somebody goes and attacks Walz. Oh, my God, Trump inspired an attack on Tim Walz. You know, you just got to be careful.
And I also think you have to work with the governors, right? Maybe Tim Walz didn't do that good of a job, but ultimately there was a lot of chaos going on. And if you're the commander and chief of the country, you have to decide what battles in those moments are worth fighting.
Exactly.
So here's the challenge, right? You know, I've talked to a lot of people in politics for a very, very long time. And I'll get people who say something like, you know, I want to build up a social media profile. Like, how do I make an account? And then I always say, how evil do you want to be? And they always go, I don't want to be evil. I'm like, okay, well, that's your problem, because so many of these big YouTube channels, these political accounts, they choose the easy route. Evil, lie, cheat, steal, manipulate. You'll get more views. And we see that. I think the bifurcation in social media is really turning into merit versus cheating. People who want to steal power versus people who want to earn power is becoming a big bifurcation here. So when I look at what's going on politically, you've got one story which we'll get into in a minute. Kamala Harris invites Bon Iver to play an event. So she gets a massive crowd, and then all of these liberal personalities go, wow, Kamala Harris's crowds are so big. It's a real video. Look at this. They don't tell you the real context. It's a Bon Iver crowd, not a Kamala Harris crowd. They are lying to manipulate. And so we don't do that. The reason I bring this up, if during the Summer of Love riots, Donald Trump thought like a Democrat, you know what he would have done? If Donald Trump wanted to play this game the way the Democrats play it, he would have ordered law enforcement in front of the White House to stand down. When the rioters tore down the barricades, firebombed the White House grounds, and firebombed St. John's Church, he would have immediately said, stand down now. Pull law enforcement out. These are federal law enforcement. Why? He could have said in a statement, the risk to those that are peaceful is too great as the conflict escalates, and we're hoping that by removing police, tensions may de-escalate. What would have happened? They would have burned down a historic church, and they would have probably stormed the White House grounds. And then Trump would have fled to the bunker, got locked in. The next day he'd come out and say the May 29th insurrection was an affront to this country. The far left is a terrorist, is full of terrorist organizations and terrorist individuals. Instead, they said, shut down the protests, send in the police. The police swept them all out. And then they went, okay, we got rid of it. The next day they said Donald Trump was evil. He attacked peaceful protesters and hid in his bunker. See, the thing is, Trump and his people were like, hey, they're firebombing the White House. Stop them, which is the normal thing to do. Democrats take a different approach. They say, we don't need National Guard in J6. We'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Police stand outside and say, I don't got orders. It's fine. Cops open the door and wave and take selfies with people, and they say it was an insurrection.
Yeah.
The Democrats pulled the soccer match, whoa, I was nudged, and then they fall down and start screaming in pain. And Donald Trump his administration and Bill Barr did what normal people would have done.
The Democrats fight like it's a blood sport. We fight like it's a hobby.
No,
always say that. We don't fight as evil as we do.
I get what you're saying, but I would probably describe it as Democrats use subterfuge.
Yes.
And manipulation, and Republicans are I'll put it this way, and this could offend a lot of Republicans, but Democrats are ninjas and Republicans are samurai. Easy way to explain it.
What's the?
Yeah, I don't get that.
Samurai fight with honor.
Oh, and ninjas are just.
And ninjas don't care; they get the job
your
done.
head off. Yeah.
So there's a really great video you can watch this. Maybe it's a bit esoteric to have brought up that analogy. There's a really cool video, martial arts training, and it shows like samurai had like they have rules, whatever it was called. I don't know if Bushido was real or whatever, but it was basically like you fought with honor and with purpose, and the ninjas were just effective, get the job done. And so they'd carry things. They'd carry caltrops. I think they were called makibishi, and they also had sand and flour in pouches because they don't care about what you think is right in battle. They just want to win. So there's like you can watch martial arts training where a samurai will fight with a katana and a ninja will, and the ninja will throw soot in his face instantly. Just don't care. Whatever's dirty enough to win, we'll do it. Republicans are approaching elections like this. They're saying, we have the argument on our side, and when everyone comes out and votes, we will win because justice and honor. And the Democrats are like sneak in the back and bring the box.
I'm saddened by how extremely spot on you were with talking about how to get ahead in the political or media space about being evil. I would call it more like cynical as you could possibly be, and as openly partisan as you could possibly be, because if you care about politics, then you are a partisan. You are not a moderate. Lack any nuance. Nuance doesn't sell. You have to play to a crowd. Yeah. And Joey, what do you think?
No, I think the Republicans have to fight like Democrats if we want to win. I think we're up against an enemy that is absolutely evil. These people are like subhuman. They will do anything. And we're not fighting them hard enough. We keep losing.
So what's like the number one thing you'd like to change? If you could,
ballot harvesting?
If you could have one prescription to fix this.
So exactly what you said. Exactly what you said, the ballot harvesting. Now, we have to do it legally, right? We have to be legal about what we do. But every dirty trick, they go into the nursing home, they fill out ballots with people. Oh, yeah, I'll vote for Trump. Sure. Do it. Just do it. Because if these people get in with their dirty tactics, you're not going to have a country to talk about saving.
Well, let's jump to this story from the New York Post. Joe Biden, quote, not confident there will be a peaceful transfer of power in the first interview since dropping out of the race. He says, if Trump wins, no, I'm not. Okay, they should not do this. They should not do this because I've already criticized some conservatives over this. They say, in his first interview since ending his re-election bid, President Biden expressed doubt Wednesday that there would be a peaceful transfer of power if former President Donald Trump loses the 2024 election. Quote, if Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. What happened when he said that, because Biden's brain is fried, he said, if Trump wins, I am not confident there will be a peaceful transfer of power, implying he and other Democrats would stop Trump from winning.
Right.
He then immediately said, I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He clarified. A bunch of conservatives then began posting it saying that just the first part, as if to imply the Democrats were going to intervene. You don't need to do that. Jamie Raskin already said he's going to do it.
Yeah,
Kamala Harris is going to be the one counting the votes. So expect it. But for Joe Biden, what he was actually saying is that if Trump loses, Trump supporters will not accept this and there will not be a peaceful transfer of power. However, my question then becomes, what does that imply? Honest question. I'm interested in what you guys are thinking. Because if he's saying Trump lost the election, by what means would there not be a peaceful transfer of power? Is he saying January 6th again?
Yeah, basically he's trying to say that there will be some display of violence because he's trying to set up to basically shut us down. He's trying to set up to do stuff like they do in the UK. You can't talk about this. You can't retweet this or you're going to have trouble. They want to have a pretext to basically shut us down, speaking, shut us down, demonstrating. That way they can just, because otherwise, what's the difference? You have a wall up at the White House. Kamala can just walk right in, joke, and hand her the power. That's what they're trying to do.
I think this is so dumb because I think we're confusing ourselves with the rhetoric. When we're talking about a peaceful transfer of power, I thought we were talking about the administration. Like I thought it would be a peaceful transfer of power from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. There will be violence on the streets when anybody's elected. When Donald Trump was elected, there was violence outside his inauguration.
Sure was.
Are you implying that Joe Biden is saying, I will not let this go easily if Trump wins?
I'm not understanding exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's like
we're talking
when they're
about
saying
Joe Biden,
peaceful,
he doesn't even understand
when they're saying a
what he says.
peaceful transfer of power, maybe there will be some protests. Maybe there will be some not peaceful protests. I fully anticipate that, but I don't think that's what he means there. So I'm trying to parse that together. Maybe I'm reading into this too deeply.
He should have said, if Trump wins, we will not go peaceful into that good night. That would have been based. Instead, he's like,
it's always to make Trump and Trump supporters look like they are on the edge of political violence when that has proven, let's look at January 13th, to not be the case. Right? There's this attempted assassination of President Trump. In July, sorry. And there's no rioting from anyone.
Did you see that crowd, right? How they stayed so still? Yeah. Nobody came. Nobody. There was it was like, it was beautiful.
What they think
it was so calm.
And I think part of it is that Joe Biden had to sit on ice for a little while. Like he had to, bow out of the campaign. He had to let Kamala, have her moment in the sun. She immediately becomes aggressive. She's immediately attacking him. Immediately the felon thing comes up. This is a guy who has just survived an assassination attempt. She's immediately back to being aggressive. And now that they're starting to bring Joe Biden back out, he is supposed to be this older, seasoned statesman who's kind of predicting the future. We know Joe Biden is completely biased in his thoughts. We know that he has skin in the game for if Kamala wins and, what his legacy will end up looking like. So it only behooves him to say, well, you really, it's not just about democracy. It's like, do you want any safety in this country? You gotta be really careful, man. And then and stops talking.
What if, one day you were, like Elad, you're out in D.C. and you're in the Capitol building interviewing people. When you stumble across a room and there inside is Kamala Harris, Tim Waltz, Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance, and Kamala starts talking about how we need to build a border wall. She's super based. And then Trump says it's very honorable for you to play the bad guy, to pretend to be the villain so that we can win and make this country great. How would you feel if it turned out they were intentionally sabotaging? I'm half kidding about the first part.
It's all just a scam, and they don't really care to address the issues they talk about, so they could run on them again.
Well, no, I mean Tim Waltz seems like a losing choice. Why would they do it? What if the reality is they're intentionally trying to lose?
Well, some people are saying that about the J.D. Vance pick. Some people are saying
Trump is trying to lose.
No, that J.D. Vance wasn't the most politically savvy person to pick. J.D. Vance ran under the ticket in Ohio when he won his senator race. I don't think he picked Vance thinking this will earn me the most additional votes.
No, I think it gives him an advantage. I look at the Kamala campaign and I'm just like, are Democrats intentionally just losing?
What else do they have though? What else can they do? What would be the alternative?
Shapiro.
It could have been Shapiro, but here's the problem. For 3 years, they told us all how much they did not want Kamala. They were talking before, are we even going to keep Kamala as the VP on Joe Biden's ticket? At this point, they've put Kamala at the top because you can't, the rules of DEI apply. You cannot go, a black woman cannot be thrown to the side for something other than another black woman. Michelle did not want to run, so all you had left was Kamala. At that point, you're trying to salvage it. You're just trying to put it together.
All I know is from now on, I got to go by the name T. Daniel Poole because Tim Waltz has ruined the name Tim.
T. Dan's over here. No, I mean, he's not great. I think the Democrats are in a weird position where they expect to win the election, and who they're going to put in place to do so is sort of secondary. I think that's really bad sign for the country. But I think you're right. They were kind of stuck with Kamala Harris, and I think there was a big faction of people who were like, let's just get Joe through the finish line, right? Let's just run Joe and deal with the if we need to replace him later. But the reality is that the Democratic Party has a lot of its own internal problems, and they couldn't have matched up a winning pair out of nowhere, especially when they already had obligations to Harris.
I think it sounds like a Republican talking point, but I think it's more than that in how the Democrats used to focus so much on their idealized version of democracy and how important it was. But Kamala Harris didn't win any states in the Democrat primary. Not one person voted for her because she was the VP. Right. And I talked to a lot of different voters about this at Kamala Harris's rally, and they'd say, oh, no, we did vote for her when she was the VP. But nobody,
Hope.
what's the whole point of the primary process if just at the end of the day the Democrats can anoint somebody new and not even have an open convention about it? So while the Democrats will constantly talk about democracy, or it seems they started ditching talking about it as a catchphrase, but it's like where's the democracy here in your primary at all? Like, we went through this entire long, expensive process to what end? To just get swapped out real quick because you're obviously going to lose. But
Also,
I guess democracy stays in the dump if politics takes hold.
One of our super chatters is saying that, we sell coffee, but we should sell Timcast tampons in light of the politics of it to merchandise.
I think the audience is...
Then you would be tampon Tim.
The audience is mostly male. I don't think we need male.
Like, this way they could get gifts for their wives and girlfriends,
I like that.
No, but... not.
Get your wife a tampon.
Not gonna happen.
Here, buy
I know
tampons for me.
You were going to say
and
something
wife.
serious, Joey.
No, I don't even remember what I was talking about after that.
We're talking about democracy
Tampon
and how that used to be a catchphrase of the Democrats, but
it's not coming
primary
back.
system doesn't matter now because you could just get swapped out at the last minute.
Well, what I was also saying is they know that Kamala would not have been able to go through a 2-year election season. They know Kamala Harris would have broken down.
She's already breaking down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
so
crazy.
They're like, we can probably get her through 90 days. They could not have gotten her to 360 days. Remember the last time she ran, right? Remember the last Democrat primary? She didn't even make it to Iowa. The media loved her. They wanted her back in 2020. Nobody wanted Biden originally. Kamala was the chosen one. She couldn't even do it.
What if the October surprise is like a total public mental breakdown? Like, she's walking to her car and people are asking her questions, and then she just grabs her head and she's like, and she like drops to her knees and she just loses it.
She's used to that position, but I'll stop.
The second time we've made a joke about that.
Yeah, that's the only.
We did
her whole
swap
career.
Biden out, but I still think we need to focus on him still being the president of the United States. And I don't understand. It sounds like a Republican talking point, but I don't understand how somebody can't be your nominee but can still be the acting president of the United States.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. There are people who only want to be a one-term president. I don't think. I mean.
Is he cognizant enough to continue his race,
they are
though?
separate questions. I think that there are you don't have to seek re-election to still be able to be the president. That being said, I think there are obviously declines in Joe Biden's health and mental fitness. So maybe in this case, yes, we should question that. But I don't necessarily think because you don't want to be reelected, that doesn't mean that you
I think it's odd that we were just satisfied with just the swap after everything we saw, and that seemed to just tame everybody.
I wanted Biden to keep running, team.
In different countries, if a president is a lame duck, they will step down and allow their underling to finish out their term so they could campaign on that and kind of look like an incumbent.
I think Joe Biden
would
have dropped out if he could have. I think he got. I mean, really, I think the debate performance. There were a lot of questions about his viability as a candidate before the debate. The debate was just fatal to him. And then, the way Trump rallied after the assassination attempt and the fact that it was right before the RNC, and the RNC was a really strong moment. Like, there was a reason Biden left the campaign the Sunday after all of that. And to that end, I think Joe Biden left with the compromise that he was going to finish out his presidential term because all of the messaging was he served his country and he's allowing the party to rally and whatever else.
It's a legacy play.
He does not want to give it up. He never wanted to give it up. And part of that is power and ego.
So we got these tweets. Kamala Harris is currently speaking and she's being protested.
Good.
She's saying that you're going to help Donald Trump win. Check out this clip.
Tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis. And he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
Wow.
I actually don't think that's a very
they were not acknowledged protesters.
Real quick, they were chanting, Kamala, Kamala, you can't hide. We won't vote for genocide.
Good, don't vote for her.
This is why they couldn't pick Josh Shapiro.
Right.
Imagine what the protesters would be doing if he was on stage.
No, that's a misnomer. They will protest her regardless if Josh Shapiro is the pick or not.
The protesters would have been bigger.
No, I don't.
This is great, though. She just totally dismissed them. Look at her dismissing them.
And this is her trying to be like, I'm a girl boss.
I'm tough,
Such
but she's doing this to her own people.
And
this is going to split the
she
party.
looked
Very
nervous to me. I mean, she looked nervous.
She's terrified.
It gets better. We have another clip. I haven't heard this yet. Let's play it.
Hold on. You know what? Here, hold on. Here's the thing. The courts are going to handle that. We're going to beat them in November.
Oh, she put her black accent on for that.
She shook. She is shook up there.
Because she didn't like that they were yelling, lock him up. She's trying to tamp up. The courts are going to handle that. You run the courts.
Yep, she does.
Family friendly.
So she's already getting protested. I got to say, like, I don't think she handled that well.
No, it's gonna blow back on her because you just dismissed the concerns of your pro-Gaza people, and that's gonna hurt her. We need to make sure we throw that in their faces so they remember Kamala does not care about your concerns with the Israel-Gaza war. Throw that in their faces over and over. We gotta just fight with anything we got.
I don't think the strategy of the right is to try and act like the left because, and I only clarify this. You certainly can't go, oh, how dare she dismiss the pro-Gaza people? No,
you can't say it directly, but you just need to target it to these people. You can do targeted.
I still think that's from the left would have to do. The strategy for the right is really, really simple. When Tim Waltz is like, J.D. Vance is just weird. He's a weird guy. You go, okay, do you have a plan for the economy? Because I don't know what that means. I mean, hey, my family's struggling to pay their bills right now. Can you tell me something else? The attack should be childish bickering doesn't get us anywhere. But you can't just say it like that. That doesn't work. Politically, if you were doing a debate with Tim Waltz and he was like, well, J.D. Vance and Trump are weird, and you went, this is childish bickering, you can't. No. You have to be confused and go, look, man, I don't know. I'm just trying to get the cost of milk, bread, and eggs down.
Vance has to respond by saying, like, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the fact that American families can't handle their grocery bills, that they're struggling to make ends meet. You can talk all day long about what you think of me, but I'm actually here for the American people.
Well, and the funny thing is they're using the weird attack, but these are people that literally have transgenders and drag queens running their whole party.
But again, this is a mistake the right keeps making. That means nothing to the average person. If you go to a regular, like, you go to the suburbs and you say that to them and they're going to go, huh?
You're right. They don't pay
Weird
attention.
works. Weird works. You go, no, they're more weird. They're going to go, you people are children.
Good point.
If there is a middle-aged mother and father and they're sitting down being like, we don't know who to vote for. And then Tim Waltz and the Democrats are like, well, Trump and J.D. Vance are just plain weird. You know, they're weird. If you then say, coming from the party of transgender, blah, 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 those two people sitting in those benches are going to go, the husband's going to go, honey, I still don't know what's going on. But if you respond with, excuse me, there are people in this audience who have deep concerns about how they're going to pay their bills. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Take the weird stuff. I don't care what you think. My plan is X, Y, and Z. And then they're going to go, I like that. That made no sense to me. Mm-hmm. These personal attacks, like Tampon Tim, doesn't mean anything to the voters. Democrats, let me stress this. Kamala has no campaign positions. None. Kamala and Waltz on their website list nothing. They are begging Republicans say Tampon Tim because it means the Republicans are offering nothing in return. Mm-hmm. They're saying, well, you call us weird, we'll call you Tampon Tim. And that means the only thing you're going to get are voters based on who they hate more. However, you want to win over a bunch of moderates? Guess what? 2-1. Independent voters in this country think the economy is bad and getting worse. Democrats think the economy is good and is getting better. Don't ask me why, but they do. So the attack there is really easy for Trump. Just be like, the economy is not doing too well. I know you guys are hurting. I'm going to enact these plans. Trump has been doing that. That's the play. But I think the unfortunate thing is Democrats are really good at, they're really good at getting the lowest common denominator. That's why they get Bon Iver to play the Kamala event.
True.
This is why at Occupy Wall Street, they lied and claimed Radiohead was coming to play. It worked. Like 3,000 people showed up. Dumb as a box of rock. Oh, Radiohead's playing? They all fell for it. Sorry, those people are dumb. Not everyone in this country is dumb. I'm saying those people were, and Democrats exploit that. Republicans think they're going to come out and do the same thing Democrats are doing. It's not going to work. It's getting into a pissing contest. All that happens ever gets covered in piss. How about this? When the Democrats want to have a pissing contest, you show up with umbrellas. And you say, I got an umbrella. Vote for me and it's yours. And they're going to be like, I'll take it because this is nuts.
Yeah, it would be nice to see, anytime they call J.D. Vance weird, if he's just like, your campaign is 18 days old and you have no platforms. Like, we are this many days out from the election and you guys have not presented a single platform.
A $300 grocery bill is weird for a family of 4 every week. That's weird.
That's all they should do is they should get the average grocery bill prices on a big board and put it right behind them anytime they do a public event and be like, Kamala's vice president.
So I don't think she has any public positions, but the way Trump should be attacking him, and the media is complicit in her not having any positions because they don't question her on it, is that she's Joe Biden. And that's what we should expect. And I think that's how people should be attacking her. What?
Let's just call Kamala
Joe Biden. Yeah. I mean,
It's as real as her other identity.
Yeah, you know.
She fakes she's a black
And I think that's how we should understand her.
Yeah, just call her Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if she's not going to present her own vision for what her administration would look like, then you have to look to the records that she's put her names on, which are her time as a prosecutor, which is deeply controversial, especially among progressives, and her time with as part of the Joe Biden administration, which, I mean, I just don't think Americans are particularly happy with the state of the country. I think you could go back to, I mean, this is one of the things that I thought Trump did really well during the first debate, which is just to go back to the most important issues all the time, the economy, immigration, just saying, like, these are the things that are bothering Americans. We should talk about them. Don't get distracted by any kind of personal, weird, or why are you sitting like that, or whatever they're coming to come up with to distract you because they're children. They're acting like middle school mean girls. Just talk about what Americans want to hear about, which is like the crisis that face them every day, the things that make it difficult for them to sit down at the kitchen table and plan their futures because they're burdened by so much fear about their economic future and also about the safety of their families.
So there are some people in the chat saying, no, Tim, you got to go high road and low road. And there are others saying Tim only wants to not insult Tim Waltz because it hits him too. Fair point. No, I'm kidding. I don't care. Call him Tampon Tim. The low road is not their mud pile, their mud pit, okay? Democrats want to get the conservatives in the arena of mudslinging because it convinces no one of anything. Like I was saying, you got some middle-aged dad being like, I got 2 daughters, man. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I work 40 hours. I'm trying to pick up extra shifts. I'm trying to work overtime, and I'm still struggling to make ends meet. And what do they see? You're weird. No, you're weird. You're weird. You're weirder than me. And he's like, I don't know, man. I just don't. That's why I'm saying low road is going to be something more to the effect of a counter to the weird narrative that doesn't just say the same thing back at them. High road is when you respond with, look, call me weird. My policies to help you get through, to increase your wages and get prices down will be X, Y, and Z. That's high road. Low road would be more like, you're calling me weird? You're the guy who did X, Y, and Z and did this thing and that thing and bad thing, and you're the reason this guy can't pay his bills. You want to go low, you want him below the belt, then you actually make them the problem, make them the fault. High road is the honorable, let me convince you why I'm right. Low road in this regard would be like, Kamala Harris personally went to your house and kicked your dog. That's low road, not just saying weird. Tell the people how Kamala Harris has hurt them. Just make it all their fault. There you go. That's
I think low road is when you purposefully spread and elevate misinformation about other candidates.
Well, no, that's evil road.
I mean, that's what the Democrats are really doing with J.D. Vance and the couch stuff, because a lot of the weird,
which Tim Walz repeated.
Walz referenced that in the Philly rally too, which is particularly gross, and a lot of the weird stuff stems from that. But like to purposefully spread, it's being really cynical because this stuff actually works, and it does make J.D. Vance sound weird and kind of silly. And now J.D. Vance can't address it either, because then if he addresses it, he's kind of elevating this misinformation.
You imagine him saying that? No, I did not have sex with my couch.
Yeah, so you Streisand affected.
Don't talk about that.
So that's really the low road or evil road that we're actually seeing play out. Beyond the weird stuff it's underlined by a lot of this purposefully spread misinformation.
Yeah, and Walz started the weird attack. He was the absolute birth of that attack.
Was he though? I don't believe that.
I don't like how Democrats are giving crazy credit for it. Like, I called him weird, but how?
But I think it started with him. He's the first big official that said they're creepy and they're weird. They're not these scary fascists.
Weird thing to give him credit for.
No, I feel like
one word to call him. Not even
picked it up and amplified it, but I really think that was started by
probably started on the online left. Yeah,
like girl in an office who's working on one of these campaigns. Maybe I'm wrong, and you guys should give me your perspective on this. But I think the other thing that would work, when you say we should fight like them, the thing is they already know their style of fighting, and so you can't really. You're always going to be worse in interpretation of trying to do what they're doing. And I actually think one of the things the Trump campaign did well was to have a very positive message. Like, we are going to get back on track. There is hope. Things are going to get better. And in contrast, both the Biden-Harris campaign and the Harris-Walz campaign have been strictly negative. Fear them. They're going to be do bad things.
Yeah, we won't.
We have to lock them. We won't go back. It's very negative. I would actually like to see more positivity coming from the Trump campaign because they did it well. I mean, this like positive, uplifting, like, you know, things are dark right now. We got to get to the polls, but like there is a future. I think a lot of Americans really want to hear that message.
Let's jump to the story from SCNR. Kamala Harris surges ahead of Trump in national and electoral college polling. Poli-sci professor told SCNR Biden shows clear signs of aging. The public viewed him as too old to be effective. Kamala Harris does not have this problem. And Frank Luntz has predicted that Kamala Harris right now would win, saying, make no mistake, Trump's advantage with the Republican convention after that ended is gone. It's wiped away. And if the election were held today, I actually believe that Harris would beat Trump. That's how much things have changed over the last 2 weeks. Harris leads Trump by 0.5 point in the RCP polling average, and several key battleground states have the two essentially tied. Luntz also pointed out, with a little more than 3 months to go before the November 5th election, the contest is up for grabs. I would also add that the polling market, the betting markets are favoring Kamala Harris in the swing states. So, guys, you know, you better go register voters. You better do everything you have to do. Otherwise, I hate to break it to you, you're going to have a president with no campaign policies or policy positions who was installed and not a single person voted for. This would be the end of the republic. And I'm not trying to be cute. I am saying if Kamala Harris wins, it will be, I believe it will be the first anti-popular president without any mandate from the masses in any way. Because we can go back and we can look at, Gerald Ford, for instance, right? He became president because of, JFK was never elected. He was VP. He wasn't under JFK, was he? No. Lyndon Johnson was.
Elected.
No. How did Gerald Ford become president?
I think he was a VP first.
I don't think he got elected.
The president got assassinated, I believe, and then he was a VP.
No, I think it was Nixon resigned and Ford had to step up. It was Nixon.
You're right. Nixon resigned, and Gerald Ford becomes president. But this is a standard process. History. This is a guy who actually campaigned on a ticket with Nixon. They won. He gets elected, and then he fulfills his duty. If Kamala Harris gets elected president, it will be the first president who is installed by a party without a mandate from the masses and has no policies for the country. Yeah. No mandate from the country.
I think the Democrats were extremely shrewd how they played this past 2 crazy months of a news and political cycle. They did it extremely effectively and kind of stole a lot of momentum that the Republicans had going into their convention. So we had the Trump assassination attempt. That was probably the day where Trump was most popular. And the coming days after that, with all of the people coming together, this was after the Joe Biden debate where Joe Biden performed extremely poorly. Trump was getting that boost from the convention. But this was all while behind the scenes, the Democrats were replacing Joe Biden, and that was exciting and motivating so many of those Democrats. And now we're seeing that boost after Joe Biden is being replaced on the ticket by Kamala Harris.
They had to wait till after the campaign because that way Trump was locked into a VP pick. All the excitement for Trump was, the big events were over, right? The RNCs, arguably the biggest event, that ended. So now let's drop the bomb. We're going to put Kamala in. And now all the momentum, the traditional momentum is with her. You have the DNC next. It's going to be a vibes and worship fest. They're going to have every celebrity. You're probably going to drag Taylor Swift out of Vienna if they don't blow her up before. And she's going to go and do this big
The Republicans hit their stride too early with
It was the only way the media could turn the news cycle, right?
And they did a great job
of it. Joe Biden out because after that, 10-day period, let's say, like the pressure was already on after the debate. That late June debate, Joe Biden was looking so weak, but he was not willing to go. Every day after the assassination attempt, going into the RNC, that you got these stronger images of Trump. Not just the standing up on the stage and like putting his fist up and that like swell of USA chanting, him coming to the RNC with the bandage on his ear, like all of the things that happened there, the moments that he had with Corey Competor's uniform jacket, like these were, I think, really big moments for the country that I think could have been points of unity. And the Democrats knew there was no way for them to message and say, like, yes, we need to turn down political rhetoric political tensions because they need that. That's the only way they can compel their voters out of
Their whole
fear
thing is
compliance.
Trump is Hitler.
It was huge momentum for the Republicans based off those three events: the debate, the assassination attempt, then the convention. And the Democrats stole all of that thunder by having the biggest news story of the past decade, probably, of a presumptive nominee being swapped out. And then the focus became Kamala Harris following that, and it's been Kamala Harris since then.
Yeah.
So obviously we
I
have
think that's
more
the thing.
time.
It added so much pressure to Biden. The only thing that they could do was get him to drop out and to put Kamala in charge to regain control of the news cycle. Otherwise, all we would have been talking about to this day, like how we haven't talked about the FBI's conversations about Thomas Crooks. We haven't talked about this in a long time because they have been able to single-handedly say we're talking about Kamala now.
They
Nothing
set
else
the
matters.
news cycle, and they do a great job of it. And now Kamala's the only topic of conversation.
The Democrats are
Someone
so
who has no
excited.
policies
No
is the topic.
policy and was hated. Remember
It's all
that.
vibes. It's all vibes and what she represents as a black woman, as a woman of color. And the Democrats are hitting their stride. Kamala Harris is gaining all the momentum right now because the Democrats felt like they were in a rut. They felt like they were screwed over by Joe Biden. They were burdened by him. He was a ball and chain to them.
Now
And now
they're
they feel like
unburdened by what has
they are
been.
just unburdened by Joe Biden, and they have a candidate who in their eyes thinks represents their voters and helps represents the issues that they're focused
And
on.
that's
i.e.
why she doesn't
abortion.
want to debate.
And that's why the Democrats are hitting their stride. And that's why Frank Luntz is saying, it looks like Harris might have the.
Well, and you
election
had an
coming up.
interesting interview because you were at the rally that I liked with. There was a guy that you spoke to, and he said like, why do you support Kamala? And he was like, oh, well, I think it's really important that we have the first female black president. And I think that's a good idea. And you kind of pushed him on it. You were like, hey, man. What does that mean? Can you explain that to me a little bit more? Like, why is this important? And it sort of was nothing. Like, it was just, well, it's important that people feel represented.
It's
not
like,
important.
if a woman becomes president, therefore,
think they
we've
can.
overcome all the bigotry towards women.
No,
if a black
no.
person becomes president, the country's no longer racist, which can't be true because Obama was president and Democrats still say our country's racist. So no matter what we do, we're
never
tarnished by the poison of racism, even if, well, I guess he was only half, and it wouldn't work with Kamala because she's
Kamala's less
also
than
only
half.
half.
Kamala's less than half. She's like, no, there's nothing there. And she specifically says, so this whole thing about the first black female president, you got to ask these black voters, what has Kamala said she's going to do for the black community? She literally laughed at that question. She laughs at everything, so that's not the biggest deal. But she laughed and said, well, I'm going to just focus on things that are good for all the people, which is a right answer, right? That's the right answer technically. That's not the answer that people want to hear.
Many black voters are mostly
There's no
concerned
black
with
agenda.
representation.
There's no black agenda.
And whatever the Democrats are doing, they're clearly doing it the right way, and they're very effective at it with the black community.
Yeah.
And
the only
whatever they're
message-
doing an effective job at dominating the black community.
It's just terror. It's terror. They're terrifying them.
To an
That's all it
outrageous
is.
degree. I think Joe Biden won next to 90%, something close to 90% of the black vote. The numbers that sound ridiculous, sound outlandish, sound made up.
Well, they convinced them Trump's a racist. They say, and then the Project 2025. Nobody even knows what that means anymore. That's just thrown out at any. Oh yeah, well things are going to be bad. Project 2025. Nobody knows what's
on
in
Project 2025. Democrats might not know what's in it, but they fearmonger about it very
That's all they do.
effectively. I spoke to many people yesterday at Kamala Harris's Philadelphia rally where I wouldn't mention it, they would mention it as one of their biggest concerns. So it is sort of the Democrats' DEI or CRT from past elections, if you will. It's become the new scapegoat phrase to attack.
Yeah,
when there isn't something
and we
tangible
can't win
enough.
on that. We can't win on talking about Project 2025. We just can't. We have to get it back to the issues, and we will. I think we will. As soon as she has to debate him, it's going to be pretty different.
Maybe Trump will deal a second knockout blow to the next. We'll see who's up after Kamala.
She's just
They're
gonna-
going to swap Kamala out
gonna
after the next
do
debate.
the same thing she did tonight, which is to go, I'm speaking. She's
Yeah.
going to wait for him
If she
to
does,
She's going to have a female moment.
If she does angry black woman at the debate, America does not like that. This is not a Medea movie. Like, it's not going to work.
You say that, but the media will praise her.
the media
She
will.
did this with Pence, right? I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
And
now.
the media loved it, but it doesn't come off well. It just doesn't come off well. You're talking about middle American votes. You're talking about votes in the Midwest.
None of this matters.
This is not going to work.
None of that matters. Ballot harvesting matters.
It's true. It's who counts these votes. It's really all it is. I saw a ballot box in D.C. today. Why do we still have ballot boxes? We don't have COVID anymore. Why do we still have these things? Like, and we've done nothing about election integrity. With that being said, I still think we win it. I really do. I still think Trump wins this. But we've got to get smart. And once we're in, we've got to use every bit of that power for these 4 years to hold back what they're trying to do to us. Because God knows if she gets in, she's not Joe Biden. This woman is going to have a competent team, and she is going to push the most radical agenda that anyone in this country can even conceive of. And if we don't push back in the 4 years that we may get now, we're going to have nothing by the time.
Well, I mean, if an installed candidate ends up winning, it just gives Democrats what they've been hoping for a very long time, Chinese communist-style governance.
Yeah.
The party decides who's going to lead the country, and everyone else just falls in line or else.
And did you see his little thing today, Walz? It was from the past where he says, well, free speech and all, but misinformation cannot be tolerated, and disinformation cannot be tolerated. They're literally Marxists. It's MAGA versus Marxism.
And he
That's
said
where we
that
are.
as a guy who was spreading misinformation about J.D. Vance and
about his own
shipping a
service
couch.
record, this psychopath.
So
he's a pedophile.
super cynical. We're going back to this about succeeding in politics and just being as cynical as you could possibly be.
What do you think J.D. Vance should do on the debate stage? Because presumably he will debate Walz.
Flaunt his record as a veteran as a contrast to Waltz's lack of and not actually stolen valor, but talking up being in combat.
I think he should act like a statesman, because Walz is going to try to put on this folksy act like he's some man of the people. I think Vance needs to just literally just be very, very statesman-like.
Do VPs even matter? Who gives a, nobody's getting excited over, I don't think, over JD or Waltz. It's all about Kamala and Trump.
Okay.
I mean, look, Kamala's got no staying power. Waltz has got no staying power. J.D. Vance has a little bit. Trump has a lot. If this election were literally the two of them, you take 10 people, you put them in a room, you get Kamala and Waltz and Trump and Vance, and then you ask people to vote. They're voting for Trump and Vance, no question. Done instantly. It's gonna be unanimous, 100%.
Trump feels like a president.
This is not what the election is. Okay,
Right.
The election is going to be blue areas that are in cults, red areas with a lot of voters. All the same will just rubber stamp R, no matter who it is, and then Democrats are like that. Okay, so that's locked. You've got D plus 30s, R plus 30s. All we got to do now is ballot harvest the rest. This election is going to come down to the infrastructure and mechanisms by which Republicans are prepared to win. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why Trump lost in 2020, because Zuckerbucks and all the rest of them had a quote-unquote shadow campaign, they called it, which was the mechanism and infrastructure by which they get more numbers than the Republicans did.
It's all about Pennsylvania, baby. And the Democrats didn't pick the popular governor from Pennsylvania, so I hope that'll be their fatal flaw in all this. So.
It would be funny if it was that they just couldn't put a Jew on the ticket that brought them down in the end. That would be pretty ironic.
Yeah, Republicans need Pennsylvania, and they lost it
would be
the
great.
past
It would be great to have it.
I also think Pennsylvania is a weird state for Democrats because Netanyahu went to high school there, right? I mean, like, there are
He
thing
did?
Yeah.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no
I mean,
idea.
it's not
Where
like-
did he go? Penn?
High school. I don't know where he
And then I think he also went to
Wow.
MIT and did a stint at Harvard. But
Yeah, he
there's
was
a large
educated in the
Jewish
US.
community in Pennsylvania.
But we can do it without Pennsylvania if we do Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and Wisconsin. So there is a path without it.
different
Pennsylvania
paths.
would be great. Pennsylvania would be the best. But, it's hard because you got Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is just so rife with bad election policies and bad drop boxes and all the. It's just hard to win when you have Philadelphia in the mix. I think it can be done, but it's going to be tough. Scott Pressler's doing a great job. Over there.
shout out Scott.
He's doing an incredible
He moved
job.
there.
He literally moved there.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm from
Committed.
Pennsylvania. My mother lives in Montgomery, which is kind of a swing county. Even my mother, God forgive her, she's not all in on Trump. She's voting for Trump. I mean, it would be very hard to not with me as a son. But it's just a lot of these women in that area. They're like, oh, well, he says weird things and Kamala's so different. She's a woman. She's this. You have to break that conditioning. You have to break that conditioning of these people. And I don't know how you do it in 90
I think
days.
if you talked about messaging, right? If we just compared records, like we've done this a couple times tonight. I mean, crime is worse in Minnesota under Walz, right?
Yes.
Do you want crime to be worse everywhere? Because apparently these two people don't think that, this is a serious issue. Kamala Harris was donating to or like supporting funds to get rioters out of prison. Let's go back and look at the school issues, right? Like, there are ways to say, like, it's fine. You don't like Trump's personality. You think Vance is, an incel, I guess, even though he has kids. I don't, whatever the.
He's weird and stops his couch.
Okay,
that's what
fine. Whatever his issue is, like, fine. But look at the way they voted. Look at the policies that they've enacted and compare to this.
And the border.
Right.
The border issue.
I think
they're
going to
come into your community. They're going to rape your daughters. They're going to do this. They're going to take all the resources. You have to focus on the violent crime that they're going to do. That scares the hell out of suburban women, scares the hell out of everybody, because these people are literally, look at Europe. That's what I always say. Look at Europe. You tried this experiment of great migration. I spend a lot of time in Europe, okay? I literally see it in these places. These are the cradles of civilization, where we're supposed to be able to show the greatest things that we've done. And you have these disgusting third world creatures running around, ruining it, ripping things apart, burning things down, graffiti on everything. Europe looks like a mess. Let them understand that America is going to be just like that, but it's coming to the suburbs, and it is.
One last point on your mother.
We're going to super chats.
Oh, real quick, one last point on your mother. Was it your grandmother who was saying she was leaving?
Yeah, my mother.
Trump? No, I think I know we're continuing to be polarized along gender lines, and as much as we like to pretend that representation doesn't matter to people, that is, seeing somebody in office in a position of a person who so-called looks like them is important to people. Women do want to see. And it is important for many women to see a female in that role, and will vote for them because of that. So we could pretend representation isn't a big issue for most people, but it's very important to people consciously and subconsciously. So it makes
We're going to go to Super Chat. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member to support the show and all the work we do and all of our other shows. Without you guys as members, this would not be possible. And so we really do appreciate it. Let's read your super chats. Atomic Patriot says, yo. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, I served in the Marine Corps infantry. I was lucky to not see combat. Lucky. I would never say I was a combat vet when I wasn't. I'm not a lying pig. Shout out.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. has a lot of integrity.
Yeah.
Great viewer.
And I think it's true for a lot of branches.
Yeah, he works
I know.
I met him on our trip.
For the Marines in particular, like whether or not you see combat, from what I know from them, is a big deal. I mean, this is meaningful to voters.
Yeah.
Corey Anderson says, Tim, thank you for hiring Mary Morgan. She makes Pop Culture Crisis fun and vibrant. Shout out to Bret. Watch Pop Culture Crisis. That is one of our other shows. So go to popculturecrisis.com. And I will say this, if you enjoy Pop Culture Crisis, they got like 130,000 subscribers. Show's been doing really well. Then thank you all for being members, for making it all possible. Because you guys are members, we're able to make investments in other shows. The idea with Pop Culture Crisis was really simple. Mary and Bret know a ton about this stuff. They're both great personalities, and we want to have shows for people that aren't 100. Like, this show is heavy news. All we're doing is saying Kamala every fifth word. Pop Culture Crisis is going to talk to you about movies, video games, and TV shows and things like that. But you're not getting woke weirdos who are doing it. So that was all thanks to members who helped make something like that possible, and it's fantastic. We're really grateful that you guys helped. Mud Romper says, greeting from the land of rocks and cows. In rural Minnesota, we embrace the name Waltz gave us, just like you embrace the weird. Shirts, flags, and whatnot emblazoned with his name for his enemies. He said, but just full of rocks and cows. That's what he told people. The rural Minnesotans ain't there. All right, let's grab some more super chats. A-Prada says, hi, Tim. I hope you address some of Joey's comments last week regarding Kyle Rittenhouse. Been watching since 2020, and I love what you guys do. Hashtag Trump 2024. I don't remember exactly what you said, but we talked about how when Kyle Rittenhouse said he wasn't going to vote for Trump, that a bunch of people started piling on and what did we call it? Struggle sessioning.
Struggle session.
Struggle
you
session.
You could call it that.
Can we get a refresher? Joey, what happened and what'd you say? Or
I don't remember everything I said, but I'm nasty. When I don't like something, if you follow me on Twitter,
you seem so
know,
nice on the show.
There's nothing nice about me. Oh, I'm nasty to everyone all day. So he said he's going to support
who's going to run
Ron Paul or something, which was just ridiculous.
Because he's got never Trumpers whispering in his ear.
Yeah, you've got 2 million followers. You got to be careful with a platform like that. And I understood later, somebody called me and explained he's got very bad people surrounding him that are just absolutely it. So
that poor kid.
But I think us piling on him is why he then turned around. in my opinion, because he's like, okay, I'm going to lose everything I got. I better shut up here and get on the right side. Maybe breaks him apart from those people that were putting that stuff in his ear.
I don't. I think what happens now is the people who are actually, they're going to say, you see how evil these Trump supporters are? You see how nasty they are? We were right, weren't we? He's going to go, you're right.
You think so?
Yep, 100%.
How old is Rittenhouse now?
Kyle Rittenhouse does not feel good having people attack him in mass on social media. Nobody does. And so he's surrounded by never-Trumpers who have been telling him likely that Trump supporters are cultists and that Trump's bet on 2A, you can't support him. Then they started showing him all this stuff that was that claimed Trump was anti-2A. And then Kyle was like, wow, that's really bad. And they're like, you should make a video about it if you feel that way. And he said, okay. Then when all the Trump supporters bombard him, these never-Trumpers who are still there are like, we were right, told you. And he's going, yeah. And he's saying, like, I had to put it out because they wouldn't leave me alone.
But he wants a career. He wants to continue a career. I don't think he would go that way.
I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse wants to be in politics.
No?
No.
I think he's so young and naive and, like, not the smartest guy. Got thrusted into a crazy situation that he sort of put himself in and now is struggling to navigate.
Yeah, he told us this. He came on the show. He was like, I'm not a political guy. I don't know anything about this stuff.
He's not a smart guy generally. Like, he's not the sharpest guy. I've listened to him talk multiple times. I've covered multiple events where he's speaking and stirs up drama as a result of that. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he's not aware of how people and organizations are using him.
Yeah.
He's been used as an anti-BLM symbol constantly, and he's been advertised as such, although he wouldn't describe himself as such. So like there's a lot of conflict and issue of who he is actually, how he represents himself, and then what he says. So he's not a smart. He's young and has a lot of maturing.
What bugged me was the support, though, because most of MAGA did donate. A lot of people donated to that fund for him that got him a great defense. And you know how it goes. Your lawyer is who keeps you out of jail. If you have a good lawyer, you stay out of jail. You have a bad lawyer, probably not going to stay out of jail. We got him. MAGA got him a great lawyer.
The other guy took a plea deal and went to jail, didn't he?
I believe he did. Yeah, I believe he did.
It's so funny.
So
they were like, it's not actually illegal for him to have a gun. The other guy's like, I went to jail for it.
Yeah. So what bugged me most was like, you got all this money from MAGA to keep yourself safe, and now, okay, I'm going to vote for Ron Paul.
But this is why the right loses.
You think?
Because the never-Trumpers are playing Democrat games. They're lying to Kyle Rittenhouse and manipulating someone with 2 million followers to get advocacy for their stupid hatred of Trump. And then the right walks up to the gates and just screams as loud as they can. And it's like anybody who's playing chess is going to defeat anybody playing with checkers pieces. So if their plan was, I got an idea. How can we make it so that Kyle Rittenhouse never likes Trump supporters and hates Trumps for the rest of his life? Well, it's not so easy to do, right? What if we get this? Let's tell him that the real issue with Trump is not that Trump's bad, but that Trump's not good on 2A and show him the bump stock ban. Then we'll get all the Trump supporters like Cat Turd and Joey. They're going to rip him to shreds, and then we're going to use that as proof. I've talked about this with how the Democrats do it. They invite college kids down to a peaceful protest, or they say stupid things like Radiohead's playing at Occupy Wall Street. Normies show up. Then the left intentionally instigates a fight with the cops, so the cops beat the normies. Then when the normies get injured or arrested, the activists go, see, aren't police evil? And then these normies are like, I didn't even do anything. I was just standing and the cops were hitting me. And they're going to go, yeah, it was the cops' fault. And then they arrested you? Wow. And that's how you turn people into far leftists. They notoriously, during Occupy Wall Street and the subsequent protests, they intentionally create mass arrest scenarios. They want this to happen because the organizers are in the jail. The people who are scared and have no idea what's going on are locked in a cell, shoulder to shoulder, sweating and filthy overnight. And the protest organizers say, we love you. Let's sing songs together so we all feel better. Take my phone number. That way you can help us. Don't you see how evil the police are? So
I'm trying to understand what Joey did. You ostracized him. You commented, told him that it was dumb to not.
I tweeted some things basically that were just, it was ridiculous and we shouldn't take this kid seriously. And I attack people. If you follow me,
it doesn't sound like if you're a public
harshly.
figure, you're also not beyond criticism and especially harsh criticism.
Is barely. And so the issue is he got 2 million followers.
Right?
No,
no, he can't barely be. He
is barely a public figure. He doesn't. He struggles to speak at events. He has no idea what he's talking about.
He goes out and is paid to speak at public events.
Yeah, terribly. I'm not trying to be mean to him. Like, he's a kid who he doesn't. He was thrust into a situation. He had no idea what was going on. He didn't understand politics. He didn't understand what was happening around him or why the riots were going on. He was trying to help the rioters and provide medical attention. He was completely out of what was going on.
Out of
Yeah.
his
Know
depth,
that.
and now he's
Oh,
a dumb,
wow.
He was providing first aid
traumatized.
to the
Oh, I didn't
riders.
know that. Wow.
Right. And so then they try to put him in prison because the riders tried to kill him. He wins, and we celebrate justice being served. This poor young man in this position didn't do this. He's a public figure only because the left tried to murder him. That guy who had the handgun and was going to shoot him and then lamented that he didn't do it on social media. Kyle Rittenhouse is only a public figure because he survived. And then from that, it doesn't mean he has any idea what he's talking about. But he does have 2 million followers. And so if you're a never Trumper and you know that Republicans are terrible at this stuff, you play the Democrat game. Get him to make a tweet, and then invariably when the Republicans and you know play the full hardcore, we're going to attack Kyle Rittenhouse and make him feel bad. Now they're sitting there going like, man, that's so awful that happened to you. We told you it was going to happen. We told you the Trump supporters were nasty. We told you it's a cult. And Kyle's going to be more now pushed to the middle and pushed away from Trump.
I think he's very impressionable, very naive, and I think he has a lot of people around him telling him a lot of different things, and that he's out of his depth. Just
Well,
Clearly,
maybe
they're-
he
I
needs
think
to clear those
it-
people
it-
out around him.
It's
I mean,
for a fact he's surrounded by never Trumpers.
well,
So
he
there
was
w-
working with Turning Point for a while too, where they were taking him on tour.
I
and-
think
Well-
one of Kyle's biggest challenges is that when this happened, he was 17, right? He's
Yeah.
not like, let's say, Riley Gaines, who was already pretty specialized in swimming, and she was already in college. She's a little bit older, a little bit mature when she sort of developed, not by choice, but she was thrust into a position where she said, I'm going to speak out about this issue, and has kind of built herself a career off of that. Kyle was so young when this happened that I remember at one point, I don't remember who he said this to, but, someone I had talked to, he said, like didn't Arizona State University rescind his admission? Like there is a certain point where he is a public figure, and I think people wanted him to be something that he was not naturally. I think it's sort of ridiculous to be like, he's not saying the thing that he should be. And I get to your point, he has a big platform and people look to him as a symbol, but the reality is that he is a young guy who is still actually developing his way in the world, and he is not the person that I would necessarily say how you tell people to vote is what you should listen to. Not because he couldn't be someone great one day. It's just right now he's sort of still developing who he is. I don't know that we need to make it a bigger issue than that. Like I think he isn't beyond reproach. People are free to attack him. On the other hand, like if you are saying everything Kyle Rittenhouse says is how you're going to live your life, like probably not the best move.
True.
All right, we got Jesse Rosenfield says he retired as a MSG E8, not a CSM E9. His promotion was conditional and he did not complete training. When he retired, he was demoted to MSG. What is that, Master Sergeant? Yet he says in his campaign that he retired as a CSM, a lie. And a lot of the media is reporting that he was command sergeant major, is what they're saying he was. And he actually was not. All right, David says, Waltz also called everything outside of the cities just rocks and cows.
Wow.
Yes, because he does not like you.
Yeah, he's an elitist. They're all elitist.
Yep.
They're going to push the teacher thing now. They're going to try and pivot.
Well, she calls him Coach Walz all the time in her speech. Coach Walz, Coach. Oh, shut up.
All right, 399BC says, MAGA, 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 MAGA. Thank you.
I wonder who they're going to vote for.
Kamala.
Alahad says, hey, Tim, did you see the Harris campaign is paying $250 for 3 posts in favor of her presidency? Might be worth looking into. I did hear that.
That's
$250.
I mean, depending on how big your channel is. Josh Abim Kildown says, been a subscriber since Tim started asking, would you kindly, and have been a Timcast member since it started because this is the only place online where minds are regularly changed about politics. Thank you. Oh, that's cool. Appreciate it. And the would you kindly reference is a BioShock reference. You guys familiar with this?
No.
With the game?
Yeah.
I don't know the reference, but I know the game.
So anytime the guy was asked, would you kindly do something, he was compelled to do it. So in the game throughout, he says, would you kindly do this? And then you as the character have to do a thing, and then it's revealed you're like under mind control or something.
Would you kindly hit the like and subscribe button?
And that's what I say.
Do you have the power? Anybody who says that phrase can compel someone? Or is it a certain person has to
I think you need to be bioshocked, which...
All right. John Christen says, I am convinced RFK got the brainworm from playing with that baby bear. I mean, it's possible he shoved his hand in his mouth.
He is such a weird human being. RFK, like
You're starting to sound like a Democrat.
Well,
Yeah, but it's not wrong. And he sounds like a fun guy.
The bear story is wild. I want him to come on and tell more stories about his wacky life.
I actually
driving all over
don't.
New York.
Just stop. Just stop.
I love that
Your
he
head.
is a major factor in the upcoming election.
I do too. I mean, I think it keeps
just like
it
a fun
interesting.
little wild card.
If we're
I
gonna
think he
live through
endorses Trump.
unprecedented times.
You think he endorses Trump? No,
I think there's
too much of his campaign has been the anti-left, anti-right. I'm neither.
There's a decent probability I think he endorses Trump.
I think he's more likely to get a position in a Trump administration than he is in a Harris
Oh, the
administration.
Democrats.
I think
hate
he's going to
this
get
guy now.
neither.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get neither, and both are going to sour on
I'm
him.
not saying it's guaranteed. I just said, you know, if he is going to eventually drop out.
Strategically, he would negotiate a position within the Trump administration and endorse Trump if he was smart. I don't know if he's smart. I don't know how much damage the worm did, but like we'll see what happens. It could happen.
I just want him to like have a story hour YouTube channel where he's like, okay, one time I was going, you know, whatever. And
I think
All
it
right.
gets a lot
A real
weirder.
Doug Lane says, I was an Army saxophonist and spent 15 months in Iraq in 03-04 with rockets incoming every day. A saxophonist in the Army band. I have more combat experience than Waltz. Coward.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Saxophone in the
do you
Army
think when
band.
you enlist as like a musician in the military, you're like, I'll probably stay domestic. They won't send me where you get your deployment orders. You're like, well, that was a twist.
Going to Iraq.
All right. Dex and Dice LLC says, hello, Tim, Hannah Claire, and everyone else. Tim, I'm just a local game store, LGS, in South Carolina, that would love to host a commander night with you, Moonlord, JD Vance, and myself. Never happened, I know, but that would be amazing. JD Vance plays Magic. Is that it?
I think so.
I've heard.
Wow. We got to get JD Vance, Post Malone, and Moonlord.
That would be the most amazing combination. JD Vance, Post Malone playing Magic.
Phil Labonte plays Magic as well.
I don't know if we could show it, but I think that's a whole counter filled with Magic the Gathering decks.
That is a particularly expensive rack of Magic the Gathering Commander decks. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 Commander decks.
A lot of Magic. If you could, we could.
23!
You got JD and played Magic against them, that would make for some fun content.
So these Commander decks, only one of them is close to what's called competitive EDH. That means Elder Dragon Highlander or Commander. We'll call it for short. Only one of them is actually close to competitive. Most of them are not. They're actually just fun, weird decks for interaction. It's a fun game.
I stopped playing Magic when they introduced Skywalker. Is that what they're called? It was like a special
Skywalker
or Sky. Like they would have like super powerful cards and
Planeswalkers.
Planeswalkers. That's what it was.
Yeah,
that's when I stopped playing because those were like the super imbalanced card, whatever.
Yeah, that would be to be fun. Phil Labonte, JD Vance, a 4-player Commander game. That'd be great. Jason Kaiser says, when I was deployed, some of us had Beretta M9 pistols. Would that now be a weapon of war? Also, love the show, and thank you for all you and your people do. Read my dumb zombie book, Arctic Cold, please. Oh, there you go. Check that out.
Get your book.
There you go.
Also, like this weapons of war argument is so silly because handguns, are they weapons of war? They kill more
I
people
think for
than
Waltz, especially after
whatever.
Parkland shooting, he was like, everything is a weapon of war.
Well, you know the drones you buy at Best Buy?
Yeah.
Those are weapons of war.
Crazy weapons of war.
It is
scary.
nuts how they're using consumer-grade drones to carry bombs. It's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're relatively cheap compared to... And then they're just flying grenades. It's crazy. Weapons of war. Heavily regulated. All right. George Crozer says, with all due respect, based on the use of Allah Akbar as a cry that has preceded attacks, is the same as screaming Deus Vult, despite 1A, both shut down conversation and lead to violence.
Yeah.
You have a response to that?
I think there's different context that plays into this. At least in my experience, I haven't seen. Is it Christians or Catholics that yell Deus Vult?
Deus Vult.
Is it
God wills.
Yeah. So, like, in my experience, I've seen people burn the American flag and chant Allahu Akbar. I haven't seen people burn any flags and chant. I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's compounded with the other context.
If you burn the flag and yell Allahu Akbar, you don't belong anywhere near this country. Yeah. You should be thrown out.
I don't know if there's also a Christian history of beheading people and then yelling that.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
All right. Titan Soap says, it's amazing how the VP picks are complete opposites. Regardless of party affiliation, I will never trust a politician. Stay clean, people. It is interesting how they're very opposite. Mike Anderson says, Waltz gets no respect from this veteran. He joined the Guard to get his pay, healthcare, and pension for 2 weeks a year. on the gamble that he would not be needed. Then when he was called, he split. That is actually a fair point that, I still do believe there's a degree of respect everybody gets for enlisting. But yeah, he was only, was it 2 weeks a year?
So many veterans in the audience. Thank you to all
he wasn't like, he was a teacher. He was a teacher and a coach. He was only working the National Guard periodically. He wasn't like,
isn't the term for the weekend warriors is the National Guard thing?
That's what they call it. Yeah, you don't. I mean, I have a friend who's in the Guard that I work with actually, and they go maybe once every 2-3 months. I think they're doing trainings and stuff like that. But when Walz says, "I'm a veteran, I did all this," he's not the veteran that you're thinking.
Yeah, that's what bothers me because I think I think people who enlist in the military, it's a service to the country, and I think that's good. And I would include National Guard in that.
Absolutely, it's more than I've ever done.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
I just think it's different when you're trying to say, you're presenting the timeline of when you were there as if to imply that you deployed to the Middle East during combat time.
Jerry J. Chapman says Trump didn't come up with Tampon Tim, Bongino did. I didn't think Trump came up with it. Did someone say Trump came up with it?
I don't know if Bongino did either. I think I saw a cat turd do it first. I don't know.
It's so stupid. Chronicles of Mexico says, Tim, you have leftist derangement. Josh didn't get the VP slot. Is that what you're trying to say? Because of Ellen Greenberg?
Ellen Greenberg was somebody who allegedly was murdered, and then Josh Shapiro helped get the murderer off or something.
No,
he ruled it as suicide.
Committed suicide, even though she was stabbed.
Stabbed 20. She had 20 stab wounds or something, and Shapiro ruled it as suicide. I think it was a friend of his.
I suspect there were lots of issues with Shapiro, and I think there were probably different pressure campaigns.
The thing with Shapiro, he's just a craven for power person. And I think even Kamala saw that and maybe even thought he could overthrow me the way I just overthrew Biden.
Well, when I saw, Waltz and Kamala on stage, I actually think she's very easy to overshadow. Even on stage, I sort of felt like he was sort of more the star of the show. Now, he was being presented as VP. On the other hand, you don't get that way with Trump and Vance, right? Mm-hmm. They're both strong, they have personalities, but it is clear Trump is running for president and J.D. Vance is running for VP.
Trump is a global presence. That's what people don't understand. You go all around the world, people know Trump. Nobody knows Kamala, and everybody thought Biden was a joke. People would even ask me, in Italy, they'll say, how in the world did that guy ever get to be president? He's senile. And
because they're better infrastructure.
Yeah, they just don't get it, though. Trump, they're like, even the Europeans hate Trump thing. That's not as true as people like to make it out. People really like the aura of Trump. Maybe they think he's crazy, but they're like, that's Donald Trump. He's a billionaire.
Well, and he rose to notoriety internationally in the 90s and 80s, when he was sort of this wealthy, man about town. That is the image that they're going to carry with them.
Everybody wants to be Donald Trump. Nobody wants to be Kamala Harris.
Yeah. All right. Biden Body Double says, I don't think they agree to a debate. I think this is the first year where the results of debates will actually dramatically affect people's opinions, especially since they don't know either of them. And then in the end, whoever is better at ballot harvesting wins.
Democrats might be traumatized from that last debate.
This is why they don't have any policy positions. They don't need them. They're just going to ballot harvest. Their whole strategy is all we need to win the presidency is to get as many pieces of paper with signatures on them. That's it. Everything else is nonsense.
They don't need to worry about a policy platform because their policy platform is anti-Trump. It's just point at Trump, look at Trump. I'm not that. I'm the opposite of Trump. That's the campaign.
It is funny how they're campaigning as though Trump is currently in office.
Yeah.
But it is.
I'm going to make everything better.
No. They're saying Trump does this.
Right.
They're like, Trump right now. They something Waltz said was like, Trump keeps doing thing. He's like, Trump keeps trying to block us, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, why is he acting like Trump's president?
Yeah. She keeps talking about how she's going to fix the economy. She's going to do all this. You are the economy, lady. You are the one. You're the one who's been next to Biden the whole time. If you are such a weak, useless human being that you couldn't stop him from doing bad things to the economy, or you couldn't push your economic agenda a little bit with this senile animal in office, what makes you think they're going to do it now?
She also says there was a state, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but that recently passed its was it Ohio? It's abortion law. It's a 6-week abortion ban. And Kamala went on stage at a rally and was like, "It's a Trump abortion ban, ma'am. It was passed under Joe Biden." I get you might say it's a Republican one, Republicans in the state legislature, whatever, but like Trump's not from that state. He had nothing to do with this. He wasn't even in elected office at the time. They're just trying to blame Trump for everything. And it does, again, kind of have this idea that he is this all-powerful figure that they're very afraid of, which is funny because they're the current government.
Christopher Grover says, Tim, can you make your best case for moving to West Virginia? My wife and I want to leave Oregon and escape somewhere more free. P.S. My wife loves chickens. I'll start with the easy one. It's not Oregon. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you soon. No, but for West Virginia, it's got its problems. They recently amended their tax law. They had really bad business taxes. You basically had to itemize literally every possible thing your business had, including like chairs. And it was a ridiculous amount of tedious work to be like, how many folding chairs do we have? This is so ridiculous. Well, they say they're fixing that, or they may have already fixed it. But that aside, West Virginia has a smaller population. What this means is, if you are trying to do things in this, it takes remarkably less people to convince, to debate with, for laws to get passed. It's a lot easier to innovate. Land is a lot cheaper. Where we are in the Eastern Panhandle, we are we're 2.5 to 3 hours from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. We're like an hour to Gettysburg. We're like 30 minutes to Frederick. We're an hour to D.C. We've got Baltimore and D.C. international airports. So this is a really great spot. And it's MAGA country. Yeah. MAGA country.
Yeah,
people out here, yeah, Trump flags everywhere. And the only thing you got to worry about is the wealthy people from the D.C. suburbs and from D.C. move out here to escape the laws that they've helped enact. How about that?
If I can add one thing, I would say West Virginia as a state is really looking to grow and change. And I think this is sort of getting on the ground floor level. Like, I don't know if you have children, but the Hope Scholarship in West Virginia is an extremely impactful school choice initiative. It's one of the best in the country. And shout out to Riley Moore for that one. He was a huge figure in that. You're also seeing a lot of charter schools pop up in West Virginia. They're trying to advance as rapidly as possible. So I think if you're looking to put down roots and be a part of something and you have children, this is a good place to be.
So where we are now in the new studio, we've got a building that is 40 feet tall at the center, and we built this entire studio. We've got around 50 acres. We've got 3 buildings. We may actually have 4 buildings soon. And if we were to try and get something comparable near any major city, we'd have a 5,000 square foot house.
The thing I like about West Virginia is it's obviously you get a small state, a small city vibe, not a small city, but a small town vibe, while not being too far removed from what I'd consider, the great big cities. You're an hour to DC. You're only like 4 hours away from New York City, like 3 hours away from Philly. You're not on the East Coast, but you're not too far either. So you're still
you're near major airports. Yeah,
it's mountainous and easy to defend.
There's a lot of rivers. Yeah.
A lot of lakes, a lot of rivers. Yeah. The reason it's not so heavily settled is because of the mountains. So when settlers came to the East Coast and were setting up shop, they were like, don't go that way, too many mountains. You can't get the wagons up there. You can't get the supplies up there. And so very little development happened because of the difficulty. Well, now there's a great opportunity because we have technology. So it's a very large state. There's a lot of wilds, and it's good fun. I will tell you this. The best thing I like about West Virginia is that talking to your local and state level politician is the easiest it's ever been I've ever seen. It's not this ridiculously dense city where the phones ring off the hook and they have no time for you and they're always in DC or they're always at fancy meetings. No, it's like the state level reps and politicians represent relatively few people. Mm-hmm. And so if you go to them and say, hey, I want to do this thing, but this law, I'm confused. What does this cover? They'll talk to you. They'll be like, yeah, that sounds great. And if you have a business and you want to help expand and you come here, West Virginia will accommodate. Most people are ready for innovation and are willing to allow stuff. And I will also add, as a very deeply coal mining state, they're very pro energy, and so you don't get a lot of that BS woke stuff. Yeah, you get it. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this with your friends. Head over to timcast.com because that members-only show is coming up in a few minutes. Click Join Us, become a member, and for only $10 per month, you can support our efforts, my morning show, the nightly show, Timcast IRL, as we cut through the fake news and do our best to give you the real news and our opinions. So if you support the work that we do and you think it's important, become a member, and we'll see you over at the Members Only Show. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. Joey, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, my Twitter is Joey Mannarino US, and that's all. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Right on.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's been nice hanging. I'm Elad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter here at Timcast News. You can find my field reporting at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. I also post some of our footage to my Instagram at Barely Informed with Elad. Hannah Claire, nice shirt again.
I'm so glad we could match. It's been so fun having you both here. I'm glad we can talk a little bit about the stuff that's going on with someone who's just at a rally and someone who has campaign experience. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for scnr.com. Go check that out. And like Elad said, follow our work at Timcast News on the internet. If you want to follow me, I'm at I'm HannahClaire.b on Instagram. I'm HannahClaireB on Twitter. Thanks for everything you guys do. Wouldn't be here without you. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.